This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
All right, it's game day, gang. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. The Jets are back at home. Luke Schenn makes his debut tonight. And the blue shirts of Broadway, the New York Rangers, are in town to play the Winnipeg Jets, as the Jets look for 2 very valuable points to increase their lead over the charging Dallas Stars, who will be here on Friday night in the game of the week, certainly for Winnipeg. And I would say one of the biggest games in the National Hockey League this week. Great playoff races going on. A huge performance by Linus Ullmark last night in Ottawa. Sens get a big win. Oilers lose to the Sabres last night, nuking our partner Parlay in the lock shop, which angered me a great deal. Actually had a real fun lock shop with Dusty. The streak, though, is still alive. Leafs got the win 10 in a row right now in March. I got major pressure for our play of the day later on. But, of course, our focus on the show today is on the Jets and the New York Rangers. There is a lineup change today that is getting a lot of love in the chat. The third pairing is going to be Luke Schenn and Hayden Fleury, which means Logan Stanley is in the press box tonight. We'll discuss that move. We'll hear from head coach Scott Arniel, as well as Vlad Nemetsnikov, who was pulled by the concussion spotter last game, but will be back out there tonight, along with Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti on line number 2. We've got one of the great goaltending matchups in all of hockey tonight. Shesterkin, Hellebuck, and stakes are high as we continue to push towards the playoffs, and the Jets look to stay on top of the Central Division and allow the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche to go head-to-head for the first 2 weeks of the Stanley Cup playoffs, if that is the way things finish up. We'll have Jeff Hamilton join us as well. Interesting to see what Hammer thinks of the latest developments of the club and the way the Winnipeg Jets look after the deadline, as well as everything that's else that's happened in the Central Division. And we'll get a little CFL update on him, although it's been pretty quiet over the past couple weeks in and around the league. I think that will change as we get closer to training camp. And later on in the program, Joey Slattery is going to jump on with us. And Slats, be fun to have Joey on. Doing a great job covering everything happening on the university scene. Shout out again to the Westmen. Of course, we had Chris Voth on last week, the coach of the year in Canada West. And the Westmen hosted their first ever Final Four on the weekend, and they won the Final Four. They'll move on to the Nationals in Brandon as the Canada West champions. We'll touch on that. And a couple of Winnipeggers, including former Seabear Simon Hildebrand, that are going to be hooping it up in March Madness south of the border. So Joey Slattery a little bit later on today. Going to be a real fun one. And we've also, for everyone that's with us here on YouTube, unfortunately, podcast listeners, this just came up, so we didn't have enough time to do a contest. But my guy, Dr. Terry from St. Mattel Dental Center, just fired me a text and said, hey, I've got some tickets for the game tonight. How about we give them out to a Winnipeg Sports Talk listener? So we're going to do that. Now, we're going to do it a little differently because we need to have emails for this to send the tickets. So just stay tuned. In just a couple minutes, Remis will come in. We'll get the instructions from the CTO as to how you can enter. And then later on in the show, we'll let you know who is going to tonight's big tilt between the Jets and the New York Rangers. Shout out to all the great sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Canadian Club, Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental and Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, fansfirst.ca, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, of course, your Winnipeg Jets, and we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis joins me now. Remo, what is up?
Feeling good. I'm ready for tonight. Big game. Jets Rangers. We're going to first look at Luke Schenn in a Jets jersey, rocking number 5. He got Brendan Dillon's permission, got his blessing to wear, but also Turbo, Brandon Tanev. He's in first home debut in 2025 for him. So exciting. We're officially like post-trade deadline, push to the playoffs. Scott O'Neill's getting asked questions from John Liu, like, is this going to be your day one playoffs lineup? So it's warming up, getting closer to April. Very exciting time. And we're in playoff push mode, Hustler. The Jets need to hang on here, finish the story, get that Central Division banner, and set up I don't want to see a rematch of last. We want new matchups. So how great would it be if it was the Jets versus another Canadian team, whether Calgary or Vancouver or St. Louis is pushing. So this is even Utah is in there. Huss, they're like 2 points back. So 3. So this is it's exciting here.
Yeah, selfishly, I'm sort of pulling for Calgary, even though I grew up hating Calgary. I got a lot of respect for what that team has done. Everyone thought that they were going to be a bottom 5 team this year, and they're not. They're right there in the playoff race. Now, selfishly, Remis, I'm thinking Calgary because we could potentially jump on a very simple, quick flight out to Calgary for the playoffs and maybe get a little road action in for the first round.
It's a good one.
I think that if the Jets are playing Canadian teams, whether it's Calgary or whether it's Vancouver or whether it's Edmonton, we could probably make it out there at least for a couple games, which would be a hell of a lot of fun. And just, to your point, coming out of last night, I know we're focusing on the standings at the top of the Central Division, but man, we've got some great playoff races right now. The Sens, with that huge win over Detroit yesterday, extend their lead in the wild card. And of course, the Rangers, Remo, are knocking on the door. They are 3 back of Ottawa, 2 back of Columbus, but have played an extra game. And this is going to be a desperate Rangers team coming into tonight, knowing what is on, knowing what's at stake every single time that they play. Real tough loss for Detroit. They stay at 66 points, 4 back of Columbus, 5 back of Ottawa, having played one more game, and those games played are so crucial right now. Every single game that you don't have is 2 less points you have the opportunity to get. So the Rangers are in a dogfight on the outside of the playoff line coming in. Of course, the Winnipeg Jets are on top of the league, top of the West, top of the Central Division, but still don't have a lot of breathing room over the Dallas Stars, who are just 6 points back with a game in hand. As far as the wild card in the West goes, the Minnesota Wild hold down wild card number 1, 76 points right now. They're still only 4 points back of Colorado and actually play Colorado tonight at home and have a game in hand. But it really does feel like Dallas and Colorado are going to be part of that top 3 with Winnipeg. Minnesota will be a wild card. And it's the 8th spot in the West that, we're looking to see who is going to come out of. Calgary's got the 1-point advantage over Vancouver. Vancouver has the Habs at home tonight. And the St. Louis Blues are all of a sudden just 1 point back. Although, again, games played so important right now. St. Louis, 2 games more in the games played column than both Calgary and the Vancouver Canucks. And yes, Utah, who lost in a shootout last night to the Toronto Maple Leafs, 64 games. So 1 more game played than Calgary and Vancouver. And they are 3 points back of the Flames for that final spot. So, both of these wild card races are going to come right down to the wire, Remo. But for the Winnipeg Jets, they don't need to worry about playoffs. They don't need to worry about getting in. What they're worrying about right now is putting their best foot forward with this new lineup with Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn in it, and getting those 2 points on the table tonight before a couple days of preparation for a team that many people think is maybe the favorite in the West right now, post-trade deadline, the Dallas Stars, now with superstar Mikko Rantanen in the lineup this season and for 8 more years.
Yeah, I feel like right now we're staying tuned to, all the games, not just Jets night. The Jets did not play last night, but hey, we're keeping an eye on what's up with the division rivals. Colorado beating up on Chicago 3-0. Nathan McKinnon becoming the 100th player in NHL history to record 1,000 points. Incredible milestone for him. And Utah did lose to Toronto at home. And looking again tonight, Colorado, I believe they're playing. Oh, no, they're not playing again tonight. Oh, yeah, sorry. They are playing. They're in Minnesota tonight. And Minnesota has been really bad since about mid-January, among the worst in the league. They've had injuries, and I'm curious if they're going to be able to hang on to their playoff spot. Kaprizov, I don't know. I think this guy might be injury-prone. It's not just Stan sitting on him that caused injuries. He seems to be hurt just about every
The bonsai drop, as you famously called it last year?
Yeah, it wasn't Stan's bonsai drop or Brendan Dillon's cross-check that did him. And he seemed, he's having an MVP season, can't seem to stay healthy, but Colorado and Minnesota on the second half of a back-to-back.
Yeah, listen, I got a lot of time for what Minnesota's done this year. It's amazing they are where they are in the standings. Like, they're 36, 24, and 4, and yet they've got a -6 goal differential right now, Reem. They've lost 2 in a row, and yet they're still 5-5 in their last 10. But, as long as they're playing without Kaprizov, I think Joel Eriksson Ek is still on IR. We'll double check that right now. Yeah, he's not in the lineup. I mean, when your top 2 forwards are out, not to mention Jonas Brodin on the blue line, and you're already without, $12 or $14 million in cap space, that is a really, really tough situation to be in. And Bill Guerin spoke about it. They know the lot that they're in right now. They want to be in the playoffs. They've done enough early on to hold on to it. But there's still another 17, 18 games that they got to finish the job right now. And they got a very, very tough opponent right now in the new look Colorado Avalanche, who are in town tonight. But they do have 6 points. I think it'll be enough. I would be surprised if they didn't stay at the wild card 1. And then all these other teams just battling for that 8th spot. And, I really hope things stay the way they are in the East, just as an aside. Like, I kind of said it on the program yesterday, really pulling for Ottawa. It's been a long time since they've been in. I want to see Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs. Preferably, I'd like to see Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators play the Florida Panthers in the playoffs, to be frank. And we could get a Tkachuk versus Tkachuk matchup in the first round. And then, of course, the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, the story that would be for that organization, the team, the players, really the league, if they were able to get over the hump and get into the playoffs after the horrible tragedy of Johnny Gaudreau. If you don't have any skin in the game with the Rangers or the Habs or the Wings or the Bruins, I don't know how you couldn't be pulling for what Dean Evason's club has done so far this year to get them into the playoffs. It's both of those teams and both of those fan bases, I think, really deserve it.
Yeah, what the the Blue Jackets are doing this year, no one had them pegged for a playoff spot. It's going pretty well. Zach Werenski having, you don't hear about him for Hart Trophy at all, but he's having an exceptional season there. So, Dean Evason coming in, we, saw what he did with the Wild the last couple seasons, gets an opportunity in Columbus. And, I think they kind of rallied, they've rallied around Johnny Gaudreau. They had the Stadium Series game as well, 90,000+ people there. So there they are. They're ahead, 2 points ahead of the Rangers with a game in hand. And, we're going to be seeing the Rangers tonight, Huss. Just how about this for the Rangers? Remember last time the Jets played the Rangers mid-November? The Jets were in the start of season heater. Since, between that game and the end of the year, December 31, the Rangers, second last in the league. I can't even read here it is. 7-16-0 between the last loss and the end of the year. Since January 1st, though, the Rangers sixth in the league, 15-8-5, and they have acquired JT Miller, who's provided a nice boost on offense to them. They have actually made some trades. They traded Capo Caco to Seattle. They've done, traded away Riley Smith at the deadline. They've done some roster surgery here, and they're within striking distance of a playoff spot. So curious to see which Rangers team shows up tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it'll look a little different than when we saw them, to go 15-1 earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. But, they've added JT Miller. The team is a little different. No Jacob Trouba, of course. Adam Fox is out. But they still have Ilya Shesterkin in net. Igor Shesterkin. I don't know why I call him Ilya all the time. Don cherrying up these names, but Shesterkin gives them a chance to win every single night. And, the Winnipeg Jets, I think, know what's at stake. Let's focus in on the Jets right now, Reem. And, John Liu asked that question, and I think it's a legitimate question, knowing that this team, touch wood, is basically healthy going into this game tonight. I mean, I know Rasmus Kupari's been day-to-day, but he was back in a regular full-contact jersey for the skate yesterday. So, I mean, if this was game number 1 of the playoffs, I think everyone's available. This is at least where they're starting. And for all the people that said that Logan Stanley was never coming out of the lineup, take the L. He's out of the lineup tonight. He's in the press box. And this Luke Schenn acquisition, seemingly, I think we can read the tea leaves, was an acquisition of getting someone that will come in, that will add the size that Logan Stanley has, that will increase the physicality that Logan Stanley provides, that will be a guy that will stand up for his teammates if you need, and be, from my opinion at least, make guys pay a much bigger price in front of our net. Now, I know there was a lot of people that thought that there would be a Twin Towers pairing. And listen, that could happen at some point. I'm not sure those guys are really fit to play together. But again, if at some point Luke Schenn moves up and plays with Josh Morrissey and they see how that goes, I could potentially see Stanley playing in with DeMello. But the bottom line is right now, with this trade of Luke Schenn coming in, it gives them the opportunity, knowing that they want to have a big guy, a physical guy in their lineup on that blue line. It gives them the opportunity to play other guys ahead of Logan Stanley. And that's where we see tonight, obviously, a large portion of the fan base very welcoming to this idea. But even those people, I think a lot of people thought that would not be the case. But we can learn a lot from this lineup tonight, Remo, with everyone that's available to Scott Arniel.
Yeah, and we're getting another look here at Morgan Barron at center. And for the, if they were going to do a Stanley Schenn pairing, maybe some concerns there about, foot speed. And Schenn, coming in, as he does all the things that you said, lays the body, drops the gloves, blocks shots, veteran presence, and
hit machine.
Let's see what Hayden Fleury has with him. I think that could be an interesting pair. And, I think it's easy to make this change after the game Stan had against Carolina, -2, and, maybe give him a game off, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Scott Arniel not exactly telegraphing what he's going to do. I mean, he didn't really say yesterday. He's like, yeah, you'll see in the morning skate, and you'll find out when they're on the ice. So, and Tanev, he's on the fourth line. I think, we saw what he brings: energy, speed, fearlessness. And I like the look of this fourth line with Morgan Barron at center. And it was positive to note that Nemesnikov, he's in tonight, got pulled by the spotter, but he's back line 2, Ehlers Perfetti, so we don't have to have the conversation, who's going to be the second line center. And Gustafsson and Kupari, they said Kupari is cleared, but both of them are the odd man out. So this is, as you said, everyone's healthy, first time in a while, and I'm looking forward to these two games here at home. Jets Rangers, pretty good opponent, and I mean, game of the year on Friday against Dallas for sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's easy. And I was talking with some friends last night. We're all talking about this game on Friday night. It's important for the team, and I would say the fans as well. Let's not forget about this game this evening. I mean, you laid it out. The Rangers have been winning lots of games. They have been playing well. While they look different, this is still a team that is dangerous. And from Winnipeg's perspective, these games against non-playoff teams, you got to do what you've been doing all season long, and that's been winning them because the Dallas Stars are coming. Just to run down these lines, Scheifele, Connor Velarde, Vlad's back where he normally is in between Perfetti and Ehlers. The Lowry line of Nino, Lowry, and Appleton together. And we'll hear from Scott Arniel on this decision. We kind of speculated this could be an option for them earlier in the week heading into the deadline. And we're going to see another game of Morgan Barron, who certainly adds a little bit more size, definitely has the wheels, playing with Alex Iafallo and Brandon Tanev on the fourth line. As we mentioned, Hellebuck, Shesterkin, the goaltending matchup, Morrissey and DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, and Hayden Fleury, along with Luke Schenn, who will make his debut tonight for the Winnipeg Jets, wearing number 5 tonight. Let's hear from Coach Scott Arniel. Of course, lots of excitement about Schenn coming in. All the questions around who was he going to be playing with? How would this lineup look? Well, on night 1, at least, it looks like this. Hayden Fleury with Luke Schenn. Here's Arnie on getting Fleury back in and pairing him up with the newest member of the Jets.
Yeah, it's a lot about, like we mentioned, after the deadline is over. We know what our numbers are now, and I want to make sure everybody's getting their reps and everybody's a part of this. It's going to take everybody. If we're going to go deep in the playoffs, it's going to take the full roster. And we're getting Hayden in there has been, something I've wanted to do. He's a good skater, good mobility. Against the Rangers tonight, just felt that, put him with Luke and, his ability to skate and make plays as well.
All right. Now, hey, listen, Scott Arniel's never going to disparage one of his players. They're not going to air him out in public. I think, Stanley has had some struggles, particularly recently. Sunday, game against the Islanders. They're looking for a more reliable person back there. And, given all of given the ability to roll anybody that he wanted out in this first game, I think it is telling. That they've got, listen, Logan Stanley's done some good things for the Winnipeg Jets this year. He takes a ton of heat, when he sort of became the lightning rod of Jet fans, or a portion of Jet fans. But listen, there's a reason for that. And we can talk about where he was drafted and how much he's played. There are some elements to the game that maybe don't show up on an analytics sheet that professional NHL coaches know matter come playoff time and in these big games. Luke Schenn is an improvement on that. And I think we're going to see what the ideal lineup is right now, given who everyone's there. But listen, Stanley is going to play. And I think what Arnie said there at the end was quite telling, that this is a team that has a plan on, their goal is to win the Stanley Cup. That means winning 4 rounds. Everyone is going to get in and probably be called on at some point. But right now, I think it's pretty safe to say this is the lineup that they are going to start with. And, if they can keep on winning, probably stay with for a little while. Here's Arnie on Fleury's play this year, who has been in and out of the lineup like a few others in that depth area of the Jet blue line.
From a guy coming in this right out of his mouth, thinking that he was just going to be a depth player, maybe even with the Moose, and then all the things that transpired in training camp with our injuries. He got a chance to play right away and prove that, he's a certainly more than capable player. When we lost Sammy, he had to step up and play an even bigger role. He's done a great job of, taking advantage of the situations that have been put in front of him, and no different tonight.
All right, there's Coach Arniel on Hayden Fleury, who will play with Luke Schenn, of course, at home. The first look at Brandon Tanev in his return to Winnipeg and Luke Schenn's first game as a Winnipeg Jet. Here's what Arnie had to say about a team he knows quite well from his previous stops in the league, the visiting New York Rangers.
It certainly changed the roster a
You
lot
know who likes all our
since the last
posts on
time we've seen
Instagram?
them. So, but the pieces
Kevin
they've
He.
added are good pieces. I know
Kevin
JT
He, right
really
on.
well. Obviously, know him from Vancouver. I had him in New York. He's going to drive that. He's driving that line. He's he's got some energy that's out there, and they have. You can see the top 6 offensive group that are coming at you, and then I think they got 2 real heavy lines that kind of play the hard game. So, different look, but still an elite team with some top players.
All right, so there's Arnie on the visitors. Now back to the Winnipeg Jets, and this is sort of what we'd been talking about. With everybody healthy, this game I think was going to give a pretty good idea of how they're feeling. They stack up, at least 1 through 6, and who's 7. But Arnie was asked, all things being equal, is this what we'll see round 1, game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs? Here's what he had to say to that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like at that when we get there, but there's a lot of positives to what we've done and who's in our lineup tonight. Just at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to need everybody, and the guys that aren't playing tonight doesn't mean they won't be playing next week or even Friday. It's just we're going to kind of have a chance here to kind of see what things look like. Obviously, we're doing a little experiment here with Bear going in the middle on that 4th line and seeing how that goes. I want that to run a little bit. Just so it's getting a feel for, kind of some different looks that we haven't been able to do earlier on.
So there's Arnie on how things look right now. Things can and will change inevitably, and they'll be forced to change. But all things being equal, this is the lineup they're throwing out tonight. And dare I say, if today was game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think the decisions would probably be the same. But he mentioned Morgan Barron at center. We've seen a lot of Rasmus Kupari this year. We've seen a lot of David Gustafsson. Things change a little bit, though, once you bring in Brandon Tanev. Alex Iafallo's not going anywhere out of the lineup. And it's a tough decision. If you've got Tanev in, who are the odd guys out? And right now it looks like Gus. I think Gus was always going to be, but the big question about Rasmus Kupari. Well, Morgan Barron's popped in and hasn't played a lot of center, but has at times in the past, and he's getting a run at that. Arnie just mentioned it, but he was asked a little bit more about the thought process and what he's seen with Morgan Barron moving into the middle with Tanev and Iafallo.
Yeah, I think that, Coop brings a right-handed draw. He brings a speed element. Gus just an all-round kind of plugs a lot of holes, whether it's left wing or center, and especially, again, left side face-off. So everybody has their qualities and their attributes that they bring to the table, and that's what you like to have because you don't know where we're going to be, whether it's during the regular season or at the end of the year through injuries or what may happen, that we've got some depth for it.
So what are the qualities about Morgan in the center position and what you know of him and what you want to see from him that is kind of like an experimentation?
Yeah, it's a big line. It's a heavy line. It's going to be like we've seen so far, they get in heavy on the forecheck and zone time. Bear's a guy that gets the net front. He is good on faceoffs, especially on the left side. So that's a bonus for us. He's had a little bit of experience, not a ton, but just this is kind of the time to get to see if it works.
All right, so there is Scott Arniel on Morgan Barron. Now, a couple more clips from Arnie. And this is, listen, again, I don't want to get too much into how fortunate the team has been this year with injuries. Again, touch wood, hopefully that continues. But you've got a few extra bodies now with the 2 new guys that came in. Arnie talked about the challenge of, trying to balance the continuity that they've had of this lineup, with the lines, but also finding out how and where new guys best fit in.
A bit more comfortable with because of the first half of the year with all our defense being out. Had to kind of do it by necessity. The second half, and it was the forwards that we started to lose. So we've been kind of doing it, sort of experimenting different lines along the way, and who knows where that may, you come down the road. At least you've seen it before and you liked it, or you didn't like it, I guess. But it's just a chance to be able to get a feel for it. It'll start to round itself out once Schenn gets going here. Once obviously Brandon's been playing. Once we kind of get them up and running and full on, then we kind of get a feel for what it all looks like.
All right, now one more from Arnie, and just talked about Nemestikov, who was somewhat of a question mark yesterday, coming out of the Carolina game. Here he is on having Vladdy back in the middle with Cole and Nick Ehlers.
You know, when you lose any position, especially when you get into your top 6 or your top 4 defensemen, those are key players, and I'm glad he's back to where he needs to be, and he's obviously going to be able to play tonight. That I don't want to get into those ifs and buts, but yeah, you don't want to lose those kind of players.
Ari, does he have his full clearance to?
Yep, he's good to go.
All right, so there's Coach Scott Arniel. Luke Schenn in, Logan Stanley out, Hayden Fleury in on the left side, which means Colin Miller is out. Schenn and Fleury get the first look as the new third pair post-trade deadline now that Schenn is here in Winnipeg. Arnie just talked about having Vlad back. Vlad Metsnikov did speak about the game on Sunday and talked about getting pulled from the game by the spotter.
I mean, that's the job of spotters, to protect players and call them in, so just no problem with that. But yeah, I did check. My nose was there, so all good.
Yeah. After you had the hit on Aho, it seemed like Carolina was paying particular attention to you. Did you get that sense as well?
I mean, it's a hockey game. Things happen, so that's the way they tried to respond. But I mean, no problem with that. Kind of, play hard, and sometimes checks like that happen. So just gotta play through it.
You never want to come out of the lineup at the best of times, but at this time of the year, when rosters are getting crowded and the games are getting so important, I guess this is a good news scenario for you that you can just shake it off and get back in tonight.
Yeah, of course. You never want to miss games and important games like this. So happy it wasn't anything serious. So just glad to be back.
All right, so Vlad back in tonight in between Perfetti and Ehlers, as we mentioned. This line's been getting a ton of chances. They haven't had a lot of puck luck lately. Here's just what Vlad had to say about the amount of chances they're generating without lighting the lamp, and whether that might change quickly.
We're getting a lot of chances, but we haven't been scoring, so we need to kind of get through that little slump and start putting pucks in the net. But you kind of try to not read into all that stuff that's being said in media and stuff like that, and just kind of go out there and play. And I think, as I said, we've been getting a lot of chances, but we just got to start capitalizing on them.
What do you see that's kind of the next step between all that control that you have, the chances that you have, and then burying it?
It's hard to say. I think sometimes it's how hockey goes. You miss open nets, you hit posts, and sometimes you just need a little bit of luck. And I think once all that starts happening, it'll start being good.
All right, so there's Vladdy the Batty. He's be out there tonight in the top 6 with the Winnipeg Jets as they take on the New York Rangers. 7 p.m. Celebrating women in sport tonight. Going to be a great anthem. I know that Stacy's going to be there with, I think it's going to be the foursome, the 4 female anthem singers that often do it. Our friend Bev Wynn's going to be there. I think Ashley Klimke. I can't remember who the 4th one is, but anyways, though, I'm sure they'll do something before the game, celebrating women in sport, and it should be a great anthem. And then big game for the Winnipeg Jets as they look to grab another 2 points between them and the Dallas Stars, and then get ready for Dallas on Friday night. Now, we are going to talk a little more Rangers and rest of the National Hockey League with Jonny Lazarus from Morning Cup of Hockey in a minute, but let's get Remo in here, because Remo, as I mentioned, our pal Dr. Terry and the St. Vital Dental Center are looking to send a loyal WST listener to the game tonight. Now, we'll figure out how we're going to execute it at the end, but we do need emails, and often that is difficult on YouTube to be able to get all that information. So tell us what you've figured out, how you've set up this for people who want to attend the game tonight. Please don't enter if you can't go to the game tonight, folks. That's and we just put that out. If you're here in Winnipeg, ready and able to get behind the Jets tonight, courtesy of St. Vital Dental Center, enter in this contest. Remo, what do people need to do?
Sure, go to our website, winnipegsportstalk.com/contest, or just go to winnipegsportstalk.com at the top, or on the there's drop down on the right side on mobile. The contest, enter your email. You'll get some bonus entries if you sign up for our mailing list as well. And if you already signed up, just sign up again. You won't get double, but you'll get the credit. So Yeah, so winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. Enter with your email, then we'll have your email. We don't have to you can't direct message us on YouTube when we do stuff. People win hoodies. We want to make sure it goes to the right person. We'll have your information. We can send you the tickets immediately after the show. So I will put it in chat right now. I can't talk and type at the same time, but I'll throw it back to you as I type it in.
Yeah, perfect. And by the way, Sarah Baxter, the other of the 4 anthem singers. So that'll be fun tonight. So, gang, if you are here in the Peg, have a free night, and want to come out to the game tonight, thanks again to our great sponsor, St. Vital Dental Center, who is getting those tickets over. winnipegsports.com, click on contest, enter, double your chances to win with the mailing list. You should be on it anyways. We don't send out a lot of stuff, but notifications on events and contests, which I think most of you would want to know about. So we'll do that, and then we'll let you know who's going to win after Joey Slattery joins us a little bit later on today on the program. All right, before we bring in Jonny, Laz, huge shout out to our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Guys, you can almost feel spring. Didn't feel very spring-like last night, actually. It was pretty cold, but it is just around the corner. We're thinking playoffs, and many of you might be thinking moving. And if you and your family have a move coming up, it can be very stressful. I understand. Take as much of the stress out of it with the experts at Rolly's. Family owned and operated for over 60 years. And the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. They'd be more than happy to give you the white glove treatment on your way to your next destination. Now, what you're going to want to do is head on over to Rollies.com. Top right corner says request an estimate. Click on that. First things first, put in the promo code WST. Got a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And then let them know where you're at and where you're moving to, when you're planning on moving, and then let them know what needs to go. And the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for that famous white glove treatment that Rollies has been doing for Manitobans for now into their 7th decade. For your next move, make it Rollies. Find out more or request an estimate today on their website over at Rollies.com. Well, as I mentioned, Terry and St. Vital Dental Center got a pair of tickets for us tonight. Of course, they're great supporters of the Winnipeg Jets, like so many of us are, but they're also supporters of great oral health and care. And if you have been neglecting a trip to the dentist for a while, what are you waiting for? Take it from me. I did the same thing. Luckily, heading down and get Terry and his great staff taking care of a couple things in the mouth. Got a great cleaning. Now I'm ready for spring. So with spring cleaning happening, a lot of other aspects of life, why don't you make a spring cleaning down at St. Vital Dental Center? There for all of your dental needs. Conveniently located, 167 St. Anne's, with free parking right in the back of the building. A beautiful building, state-of-the-art equipment, and a very friendly staff, and every service you could possibly need, all the way to dental implants, if you want to find more about that, is available with Dr. Terry and his team at St. Vital Dental Center. For more information, go to stvitaldental.ca. You can make an appointment to pop in, or just simply give them a phone call. Let them know your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you as well. Already had great feedback from a few of our listeners that have popped by and made a visit to Dr. Terry over the last little while. But again, thanks again to TJ for those tickets tonight. I'm sure one of our WST listeners will be fired up to get out to the game this evening. Hey, shout out to Donnie and Manitoba Battery. A lot of talk about shopping Canadian, even better if you can shop local. And Manitoba Battery is your local option for batteries of all makes and all models, where you'll get not only the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, but the best in customer service. If you feel you need to test your current car or truck battery, not knowing if you need one, pop by and see them in person at Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive. They'll give you a quick free battery test. And if you need a new one, you'll be able to get an even better deal in person with the core exchange right there. But many of you maybe don't have the time to get down there. No problem. Best in customer service as well. They'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg perimeter. with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. So for all your battery needs, keep it local. Get the best prices in town with Manitoba Battery. You can give them a call today or order online at manitobabattery.com. And just before we bring in Jonny Lazarus, shout out to our friends at Canadian Club. We're talking about shopping local Canadian. We know that the Manitoba liquor marts look a lot different right now in the middle of this trade war. But good news for you whiskey drinkers, because the standard, the best in the biz when it comes to Canadian whiskey, the original Canadian Club, still available for you, along with the other Canadian clubs, the 100% Rye, the Canadian Club Classic. It is all waiting for you at your local Manitoba liquor marts, where you can get the best in whiskey and keep it Canadian at the same time. Keep your eyes out for the Canadian Club display on your next trip to your local Manitoba liquor marts. And thanks to Canadian Club for their longtime support of WST. All right, Jeff Hamilton coming up a little later on. Joey Slattery as well. Right now, let's welcome in Jonny Lazarus from Morning Cup of Hockey and Daily Faceoff to tee up Jets and Rangers from a Rangers perspective. What's going on, Jonny? How are you?
I'm good, and hopefully I'll be better tonight than the last time the Rangers and Jets met, because that was an ugly one for us here in New York.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was thinking about that game earlier on. That was actually one of the games where I think Winnipeg fans looked at this team and went, holy smokes. I mean, this team is sort of capable of some really good things so far. They like when the Jets do get going, they can look a little Harlem Globetrotters-esque, and I think that night was to cite another New York team.
Yeah, well, if I'm remembering correctly, Andrew, I think that was when the Jets became the fastest team to 16 wins. I think that was the game. So obviously things were really, really high for Winnipeg around that time. I actually had a great conversation with Nikolai Ehlers that day at Morning Skate, and I believe Kyle Connor as well. And the one thing that stood out to me about this Jets team right from the jump, which is what Ehlers said, which I've been kind of talking about all year, is that he said we got embarrassed last year in the playoffs. And the conversation around the summer was not that they needed a change in personnel, but that they needed a change in mentality. And I think you've seen that a lot from the Jets this year. But it's weird. On our show this morning, people are comparing the Jets to the Leafs. And I'm like, I don't think Winnipeg, granted, they haven't made it far in 6 years, but I don't think the disappointment is on the same level for the Jets that it is for the Leafs. I thought that was an unfair comment. So I kind of defended Winnipeg this morning, actually, on our show.
You know what? It's funny. I mean, the Jets will get compared to and put into a number of different, kind of boxes. At the end of the day, this is the smallest market. People are now paying attention to this team, but you will get a ton of uneducated takes about the Winnipeg Jets around the hockey world. But listen, at a certain point, and I'm glad you brought up what Ehlers had to say, they are sort of, all season long, I think they've been proving it to themselves that they're better than what they were. And listen, that series last year against Colorado was unfortunate because, they honestly were at their worst for a week. Outside of the entire year, they were a really good team. They were 4th overall. And listen, credit to what Colorado did. But they've sort of been proving it all season long, and they'll have to do it again come playoff time. And we'll get to that in a minute because the Central Division got a little tougher over the course of the trade deadline. Let me ask you though about where are the Rangers at right now? Because this was a team they sort of bought, they sort of sold. They're not even in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, no, it's been a really rough year. And I think where fans are at, I can speak from the fan perspective and maybe then on the team perspective. For the most part, Ranger fans are always easily checked out, but this team just sucks them back in so quickly. I see so many fans saying the season's over, I'm giving up in October. That's how it is in New York. We're very pessimistic here, and honestly, it's rightfully so because every sports team here pretty much sucks for the most part, or has sucked for the last 15 years. Aside from the Liberty this past year winning the WNBA, I don't think New York's seen a championship since the Yankees in 2009. So it's been a long time here. But where the Rangers are at right now, it was kind of just revamping this team on the fly. I think Chris Drury has tried to find a new identity. And that's something that is very hard to do for GMs in the NHL, is decide that your core is not good enough. And I think, myself included, people believed in this core for the past 3-4 years after what was supposed to be a rebuild, which was more of a retool of some sorts. When you sign Artemi Panarin, you bring in Jacob Trouba at the time, who was a big deal to bring in. Adam Fox emerges from a 3rd-round pick into a Norris Trophy winner. You win the lottery, you get a 1 overall, you get a 2 overall. Like, a lot of things went right for the Rangers, but then on the ice, everything pretty much went wrong. And I say that obviously going to 2 conference finals in the past 3 years, like, a lot of fans would take that and be happy with that. But what happened this year was that the Rangers got off to a good start, but anyone who was watching them play, despite the record, I think it was like 12-4-1, they didn't look like a 12-4-1 team. And I think management and Chris Drury specifically decided, this team is good, but it's not good enough. And even at our best, we're not going to be able to compete with the best. So we got to find a way to fix this. And that's what they've been doing all year. So I think next year, at the start of the season, you'll see a Rangers team that's going to hopefully be competitive. But right now, it's kind of like, if they make the playoffs, great, anything can happen. But if they don't make the playoffs, it's not a total waste, because you brought in JT Miller, you got rid of Trouba's contract, you moved on from Capo Caco, which, some people are still upset about. You get Will Borgen extended, who's been great. Like, there's so many little positive things that they did do this year that won't show up in the standings. But it's a good redirection to where this team needs to go.
Jonny Lazarus is with us. You can check him out weekday mornings on Morning Cuppa over with the Golden Muzzy at DFO in the morning.
Colby Cohen, not Nick Alberga.
Oh, Corey.
He does Leafs Morning Take.
Next time, yes, Leafs Morning Take. Last thing you want to do is be associated with anything Toronto Maple Leafs.
Exactly.
We hear that as well. You mentioned Jacob Trouba, and I have to ask, when that all went down, it seemed like it was, you don't see NHL GMs usually played hardball like that with players, especially captains. Do you think there'll be any reciprocal effects of that with play? Like, everyone always wanted to go to New York. I mean, this was the place where guys want to go to. I really did wonder how that went over with other players, because that is not something that you normally see in the NHL, the way he got strong-armed and then sent out to Anaheim.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I get that, and I get why it's a conversation. And at the time, I probably would have thought more into what you're saying. But knowing what I know now, and like just seeing how players get handled a little bit throughout other teams in the league too. Like, you look back at Stamkos last year, he doesn't get re-signed in Tampa, and that relationship is whatever you want to call it. And then Hedman basically signs the same exact deal he got in Nashville. People want to play in Tampa. People want to play in New York City. I think that's never going to stop. JT Miller moved his no move clause or I guess accepted the no move to New York only. So I don't think that's really going to have a long-term effect on players wanting to be here. It's biasly, it's the best city in the world. You play in Madison Square Garden every night. Like, there's nothing better than that. And a lot of players around the league feel the same. So I don't think it'll be an issue going forward. And people have to remember too, it's not the New York Chris Drury's. It's not the New York James Dolans. It's the New York Rangers. It's a historic franchise. People want to be here. And I don't think that'll change.
No, that's fair. We've just had a long history here in Winnipeg with old Kurt Overhart. And I had to think, I wonder how this will go over. Any issues with the actual team, the guys that were left over, to see what happened to Jacob?
None of them have spoken out about it. I think a lot of players have said it's unfortunate, but sometimes it's a part of the business, and honestly, to win, feelings sometimes have to get hurt. We had Neil Smith on our show last week. He was the GM of the Rangers in '94, and he shipped out, like Tony Amonte, a young promising star, to bring in some older experienced guys. And I'm sure that hurt a lot of feelings back then too. And Neil Smith said, like, that's one of his biggest regrets as far as a trade he made, but that's what they needed to do to win a Stanley Cup. Like, I don't think anyone is, we talked about it last year. Like, Jonathan Huberdeau was obviously sad seeing Florida win, but they needed to make that move in order to get there. These are the things that happen, and you're not going to win Stanley Cup if you just try to preserve feelings. That's really what we've learned here in New York. And honestly, there might be more of those decisions that need to be made this summer. Like Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, 2 long tenured Rangers, might be on their way out this summer if that's what Chris Drury and management feels that needs to be done.
The JT Miller trade was interesting because you kind of did get older in that trade.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there is sort of this change right now with the Rangers. That being said, this guy's a player, and he seems to have really fit in well back in New York. How's the trade affected the club, and how's he been?
Oh, he's been great. Whatever preconceived notions there were about him in the Vancouver locker room, I don't see those to be true. In the Ranger locker room, at least, just because it seems like his personality has been very infectious since he's gotten here. And obviously, we could talk about that previous game against the Jets and how bad it was for Mika Zibanejad, who had a really bad start to the year. That was probably his worst game of the season. Like, he was individually responsible for 3 of those goals with turning the puck over in bad situations. But since JT's gotten here, Mika Zibanejad's been one of the leading scorers in the NHL. The past 3 trade deadlines, the Rangers' targets have all been a right winger that can play with Mika Zibanejad on the top line. And JT Miller has been brought here. And as of late, he's been playing in the middle of Cooley and Zibanejad. Zibanejad's actually been moved to the right wing, and he's thrived in that position. He's got 18 points right now in 14 games since JT came over. JT has 15 points in those 14 games as well. They've been doing nothing but producing, and Mika just looks a little bit more engaged too. Like, there are moments where he can make a stronger play, but the first half of this year, Mika didn't look engaged at all. And there's certainly been a JT Miller effect with him personally. And then throughout the team, I think you've seen a little bit more, Juuso Parssinen, or is it Juuso? I'm blanking on it right now, but I think it's Juuso. Parssinen comes in, he drops the gloves a couple games ago. Will Cooley fought in his first or second game. JT Miller is the first guy over the boards to go tap him on the shins. So many little things that you can just see on the bench around the room that he brings to this locker room that was missing for quite some time.
Now, I want to ask you about Adam Fox. And I'll be honest, I was in Boston for the Four Nations. The talk around a lot of USA people were, what is up with Adam Fox? I mean, you have this incredible lineup, and he was a guy that did not really, I think, put his best foot forward in that tournament. How's he been for this season? Where is he at right now? I mean, is he the golden boy of this blue line moving forward?
Yeah, well, it's definitely been a rough season for him. Obviously, he's out right now due to injury. He hasn't been the Adam Fox that we've seen the past few years, just when it comes to goal scoring and stuff too. Only 5 goals in the year, a couple of those were empty netters. I think last year he had 17. And the Four Nations thing, listen, I am not a harsh critic about that. Obviously, a guy like Kyle Connor gets scratched in that championship game. Jack Hughes, people were saying, had a rough go. That is the best of the best. That pace of play, and I was at essentially every game of that tournament. It's the fastest hockey I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not going to judge, Adam Fox in the NHL versus Adam Fox in the Four Nations tournament. You're not going up against a third line.
It's totally fair.
Brad Marchand, you know what I mean? It's a different game. And listen, I've known Adam Fox since he's 10 years old. He grew up a town over from me. We grew up on the ice together, going to summer camp together, playing roller hockey. I'm good friends with his parents, his brother. And anyone who's watched Adam Fox play knows that what was lacking is his foot speed and his physicality. That's always been an issue, or always been a common criticism of his. But what he's always had that's better than everyone else on the ice is his brain. He's the smartest hockey player out there, always makes a good read, and he's always made up for that lack of speed and strength with the way he thinks the game and with his ability to set up his teammates. And that hasn't changed at all. The Rangers as a team are having a down year. And obviously with that, certain individuals are going to have a down year, right? Adam Fox having less production, Mika Zibanejad less production, Alexis Lafreniere less production. The team has, Vinny Trocheck, the team has not been playing well. So obviously individual points and individual standards are going to take a hit with that. That said as well, you have to remember, back to my original point, Adam Fox was a 3rd round pick because of these deficiencies. He's a Norris Trophy winner, but he wasn't drafted in the top 10 like Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, who were known to be great skaters and offensive weapons. And Adam Fox still has that. He's one of the best power play quarterbacks in the NHL, but, obviously playing in that best on best did, it hurt him a bit, but I don't think that's the player he is.
Jonny Lazarus with us here. Morning Cup of Hockey is the program on Daily Faceoff, along with Colby Cohen. But shout out to the Muzz. Always a great guest on the program. What did you think of the trade deadline, just league wide? I do want to get to the Central Division in a minute, but maybe start out east in particular. What is left with the Atlantic Division? And my God, Brad Marchand, you probably know a bunch of Boston guys. I mean, they look like their dog passed away after the trade deadline with Marshy going down to South Florida.
Yeah, I was actually just listening to today's Spit and Chicklets before, and it sounded like Grinnell was going to cry on it. So I know he's going through it right now. I've been texting him a little bit the past couple of days trying to get him on our show, but he's dodging me because he knows we're going to make fun of him. But yeah, I think the deadline day itself wasn't the most exciting, but everything leading up to the deadline this past 6 weeks has been arguably the best place hockey's ever been, right? And I think it starts with that original Rantanen for Natchez trade, back in the end of January. That's kind of what started this ripple effect. Then, the JT Miller trade to New York happens about a week later. Then we get into Four Nations, and then we get into the deadline. And seeing Mikko Rantanen go to a division rival, obviously I'm sure it sucks for you guys, but I'm happy as hell to have him out of the Metropolitan Division. And I think that's awesome for hockey, seeing big players like that on the move, seeing the drama that we don't necessarily see in this league all the time, and that's going to now spread into the summer. And we're going to be talking about a guy like Mitch Marner, right? Like, he's not renegotiating right now. What's he going to do this summer? Will he test the open market? Like, that's going to be the next big name to have a domino effect going here. Brad Marchand going to Florida, obviously that's a big deal. The Bruins trading two of their players, Brandon Carlo, onto division rivals, excuse me. I thought it was great, but I've definitely seen more active deadlines. I think there's been deadlines that have had 50 moves, even maybe more than that. This deadline, I don't know what the final tally was, but it felt like it was a little bit lighter as far as the actual transactions that were made.
It's funny that you make that, Johnny. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Just, being like you at some of the games, when you look back at the last 6-7 weeks in the NHL, starting with those flurries of trades basically at the end of January, it really has been an incredible few weeks. And I'll tell you what, it set the bar very high for the Stanley Cup playoffs, but the Stanley Cup playoffs pretty much always deliver.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no better time of the year than when like April 18th hits, right? It's just first round of playoffs. There's incredible hockey on all night. The weather is great. I'm not sure about Winnipeg. I heard it snows there in June, but the weather in New York is great.
Fake news.
It's fake. And it's, to me, like, the first round is my favorite time of year. Because you're getting like 4 hockey games on every night, basically, throughout both conferences, 2 in the East, 2 in the West, and you're watching from 7 o'clock to 1 a.m., just battle after battle after battle. And, hopefully you get some continuous overtime. And listen, I actually saw a TikTok the other day of just some random guy, and he was talking about the Four Nations tournament. And then he was like, I think it was the Seattle Philly game he had on. And he was like, you're telling me this is regular season hockey? Like, people talk about playoff hockey. I can't believe that these guys battle like this in the regular season. I can't wait to watch playoff hockey. I'm trying to do like the accent he had. But hopefully that fan is not disappointed with what he sees come April.
Well, if he was that fired up about a Seattle Philly game,
exactly.
Buckle up when you get to the teams that are actually in the playoffs. Kind of combining playoffs and trade deadline, the Central Division got, you mentioned, I mean, listen, from a Jets perspective, it sucked. They hope to get Brock Nelson. He goes to the Colorado Avalanche, and as fired up as the Avalanche were, I'm sure, to get Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle for that matter, Mikko Rantanen comes back and is now in the division. And listen, if the Jets can take care of business and win this division, like, we're going to see Colorado and Dallas in all likelihood go at it in the first round of the playoffs, Johnny. I mean, the first round always delivers, to your point. But I got to tell you, this year there's going to be 2 series, the 2-3 spot in the Central and the Atlantic, that honestly could be as good a series as anything we'll see in the entire playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a shame that it has to be that way. I don't know what the 1 through 8 seeding would look like, but it sucks that we might lose one of Dallas or Colorado in the first round, because I would love to watch that as a conference final matchup personally. Colorado actually was like my cut pick 2 months ago, and I'm kind of sticking with them, even though my preseason prediction was Dallas over Toronto in the final. But Winnipeg, I mean, you have to get first, right? You cannot let Dallas catch you in the standings, because your first round matchup will be incredibly difficult. So obviously I think Winnipeg is going to push here, and, they're even competing for the President's Trophy, right? Like, what are they behind Washington? Or they're tied with Washington right now. So obviously that's critical for them to finish ahead of both those teams, because I imagine Honestly, Winnipeg would be the underdog probably, even if they finish second and play Colorado or Dallas.
Right now, I mean, if you look at the cup odds, the cup odds, Dallas is a co-favorite. I'm looking at 6-1.
So it's kind of crazy though that we say that though, Andrew, because like Winnipeg has all this pressure on them, but because of what those two teams did at the deadline, it's almost like they're the underdog no matter what. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that being said, no one cares if you're the underdog or, you got to go and you got to win. Yeah. But to your point for the Jets, who, like, listen, I like the Jets' chances a lot more if they can win the division and play Vancouver or Calgary in the first round, get out of that, and have Dallas and Colorado beat the living hell out of each other for 7 games. Not only do you have a good feeling because you've got over that hump and you're in the second round, but make no mistake, I mean, whoever comes out of that division is not going to be the same as when they came into it. So to me, that I think is what Winnipeg has to do. And it's going to make for a season that looked like, well, you knew they clinched a playoff spot 3 weeks ago with 17 games left. And a game like this tonight against a team that could be a playoff team, could not be in the other conference. On the surface, it doesn't really matter. Every game matters right now, not to mention the scoreboard watching with the other two teams right now. Let me ask you this, just can you focus mostly on the East? I mean, the Caps have been the top team all year long. Post-deadline, who do you think is the best team in the East and has the most likely chance of representing that conference come the round 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Oh, man. I think everyone's going to fear Florida, obviously, but I still think Tampa's been really good. Like, I think getting Jonny Gourde and Bjorkstrand has gone so under the radar now because of what everyone else did. But Tampa coming out of the break, like Andrei Vasilevsky right now, I think has been like the best goalie in the NHL post 4 Nations. I was looking at his numbers earlier. He's, allowing less than 2 goals a game. I think has above a .930 save percentage. Like, he's been money. And Tampa's always a team that we sleep on in the regular season because, maybe they're not all that sexy, but they're always dangerous come playoff time. And I'm not saying they're the team I fear most. Washington, they've been so good, but something about them to me just like still is up in the air. I think on paper, it's got to be Florida. It has to be, right? Like when you add Brad Marchand and Seth Jones and you have that lineup they already have there and the style of play that they play, it's so hard to not pick them. And obviously they've been to the last 2 cup finals. Like, that's just the easy answer. But I'm going to go off the board and say that Tampa's still a really scary team. And Andrei Vasilevsky, if he can get hot come playoff time, like we've seen in the past, like it's just as much theirs as it is anyone else. Braden Point's one of the best playoff players there is. Brandon Hagel's had a hell of a year.
I don't mind that guy behind the bench either.
Yeah, and Nikita Kucherov and Jake Gensel are still, 2 unbelievable playoff performers as well. If we're honestly, I'm looking at the standings now. I see goal differential. Tampa's goal differential is a +55. Like, that's very underrated. Just looking around the league. Winnipeg obviously leads that mark with 76, but Tampa's right there, man. I think they're really good, and I think people might be sleeping on them just because of what everyone else has done.
Listen, Johnny, great minds. We had a big conversation yesterday. We're going through, who should be the favorites, the most likely, and looking at the odds. I think Tampa's the best value play on the book. I'm seeing plus 1250 right now here, while Florida's plus 550. Listen, if those teams play, I think you're talking about 6-7 games, and I think it really could be a coin flip. And then we'll see what happens to the Leafs or whether they're one and done in a very tough neighborhood, albeit. But hey, listen, before we go, fill people in on a Morning Cup of Hockey, what the show contains and where people can check it out.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the plug, Andrew. So we do the show every Monday through Thursday on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel from 9 a.m. Eastern to about 10:15 a.m. We'll be doing 5 days a week once the playoffs start. So we'll be adding those Friday shows, and we have, a various amount of guests. Pat Maroon hops on our show once a week, which is cool. So we get like a current NHLer's perspective on everything going on around the league. I think tomorrow we're actually going to have Shane Pinto on. From Ottawa, who's a buddy of mine. That said, they play tonight in Philly, so if that game goes poorly, he might ghost me, which is understandable. But we have like GMs on, coaches, and we have everybody around the NHL pretty much on the show. So it's been fun. It's kind of a debate style show as well. Colby and I have a lot of different opinions, so it's a good little battle, and we have the live chat active so people can chime in. But I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping for a fun game tonight.
Jonny, great to have you on the program. And hey, don't sleep on the Jets. I know we don't have a lot of people, pumping up our tires out east, but maybe if the Jets play well again tonight, you'll have seen two very good examples of this team, and maybe that can carry on into the morning cuppa.
Well, I'll be honest. Tonight's a lose-lose for the Jets because if they lose to the Rangers, it's obviously a bad look. And if they beat the Rangers, everyone's just going to say the Rangers been playing like shit. So it doesn't really matter what happens tonight.
Well, hopefully the lose-lose involves 2 points for Winnipeg. We need it because of that Central Division that we've talked about. Hey, pal, thanks again. Let's do this again sometime. Appreciate you.
Anytime. Appreciate it, Andrew.
All right. Appreciate Jonny jumping on the program today. Hammer's coming up in just a couple minutes. Joey Slattery later on. And again, if you just popped in late, our friends at St. Vital Dental Center have given us a pair of seats for the game tonight, which we will be giving away at the end. If you want to enter and you're able to go to the game tonight, get on over to winnipegsportstalk.com, click contest, follow the instructions. Good luck to all of you, and stay tuned at the end of the show. We'll let you know how that all works out. Hey, huge thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto really is synonymous with Winnipeg, as they were founded here in the Peg, headquartered here in the Manitoba capital, and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 Winnipeg locations to serve you. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, I should say Manitoba locations, because the 3rd location is out in Brandon for our friends in Westman. At Princess Auto, you're going to find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. And of course, if you can't make it in, you can also peruse everything they've got and shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Less than 100 days away as well from getting out to Princess Auto Stadium and cheering on the Bombers for another season. And of course, the Grey Cup hosted at Princess Auto Stadium this year as well. Speaking of great Winnipeg companies, Wallace & Wallace has been the fencing and overhead door experts in town since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call. They've got you covered with welded wire, vinyl, ornamental, chain link, wood fences, the leaders in temporary fencing as well. And if you need a new garage door, Wallace & Wallace has the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town, which means one to perfectly match your home and add value to it at the same time. Give them a call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will be happy to pop down and give you a free estimate. You can also check them out online at wallacefences.com or pop in and give them a visit at their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenniston. Well, with spring around the corner, you know what that means, gang. Graduations, weddings, and maybe you just need to up your menswear game for the new season. F Apparel's the place to do that. 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits, golf pants, chinos, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles. If you do have a grad in the family, make sure to direct them to F Apparel, because right now, 2025 Manitoba grads who get a suit at F Apparel will receive a free shirt and tie, courtesy of F Apparel. And of course, they've always got great deals for wedding parties. When the fellas get their suits for the big day, take care of that, to take advantage of that discount. Find out more in-store or online at ephaapparel.com. You can also, of course, make a booking to pop in for a fitting online. And if not, just pop down and see him, 190 Smith Street over at F Apparel. And just before we bring in Jeff Hamilton, big shout out to our friends over at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Cannot wait to get out there a little later on this year with Mark, who is our winner with the HSC Foundation auction. But if you are looking for a world-class fly-in fishing experience right here in the province where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens is the spot. And in addition to world-class fishing, you're going to get the world-class hospitality that Aikens is famous for from the Turenne family and the incredible staff each and every year. AikensLake.com is where you'll find out more on options and opportunities and booking for the 2025 fishing season. Also suggest you check them out on all the social platforms at Aikens Lake. All right. We had Hammer. Did we lose him, Reem?
He was in and then he left. Oh, he's popping back in. Just give me 1 second. He's on his phone now. I'm not sure why.
Interesting.
Just let me load him.
He probably
in.
forgot to plug in his computer.
It's possible.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm not sure they can. Though. Just give Remis 1 second.
He's in now.
Hey, Remo, can you hear me?
I can.
For some reason, my laptop charger decided not to start working, and now my computer is dark because I have one of those computers that needs a charger in it. So it was, as I was getting ready to go, it's turned black. But if this works, then we'll have to do a bit of a car cast, radio cast.
It sounds good. Looks
now
good.
This is my old phone, but it has an ear jack in it, right? So I can talk like that. I can put on my other phone.
No, this is good.
But I won't have an ear jack.
This is good. We're rolling. The people have been waiting for Hammer Time this year, and we've got it going on. Let's get.
Am I live right now?
Yeah, you're live right now.
Holy smokes! I thought it was just like behind the scenes green room stuff, and I was about to.
No. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. You don't want to see Hammer After Dark here, folks. We got to keep it.
Yeah, totally. I want to keep working.
Let's get right into it. I mean, takeaways from the trade deadline. We're going to see Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn in. I think overall it was maybe felt a little disappointing, underwhelming. Everyone was so hyped up for Brock Nelson. He goes to Colorado. Mikko Rantanen comes into the division. Certainly didn't make things any easier. Big picture for the Jets, but what did you think about the adds that were made?
I think those were the fringe moves that the Winnipeg Jets were trying to make, right? The depth defenseman with the experience. Luke Schenn fills that void. The only guy on the roster with a Stanley Cup ring, right? And then you have Brandon Tanev that I think gives you that depth deeper in the lineup, certainly adds to the penalty killing, which was also a prime area that the Winnipeg Jets look to improve on. But again, it's kind of, the kitchen was already pretty busy, Huss, with the bottom six. So adding, a Brandon Tanev, well, it's nice that there's a familiar face in the locker room and you kind of know exactly what you're getting with him. The Jets kind of had a surplus of those guys. That being said, I do think Brandon Tanev proves to be a valuable piece for the playoffs, again, for special teams and also for that depth on the fourth line. And if you get into a situation where you get an injury on that third line, right? That's kind of the fear, if there is one, Huss, with, the lack of action at the trade deadline is you're left holding your breath, hoping that things, go to plan as far as the injury front. And I know that you've been knocking on that wooden skull of yours a couple times, even this show, with hopes that the team can stay away from the injury trouble that always gets every team in the playoffs. It poses an issue. It becomes an issue on whether or not, they can stay healthy. We know by game 60 something, and especially heading into the playoffs, everybody's banged up, everybody's bruised, everybody's dealing with something. And if you can limit that, even in this time, right? I know the Jets are jockeying for position, obviously, but even if they can get guys in and out of the lineup from a health standpoint, keeping guys fresh, keeping guys as healthy as possible, that will boast well for them in the playoffs. Again, I do think the lack of bigger names, the lack of that piece, right? You saw Jets fans collectively hold their breath when Vlad Nemestikov was in concussion protocol, wondering what that would look like after the game if he'd be out long-term. And again, if you're looking at, a guy like Vlad Nemestikov getting injury potentially, and I mean, these are my words, nobody's been saying this, potentially derailing your playoff chances, that's not a really great position to be in. That being said, I think the Jets are going to be a collective sum of all their parts. I don't think it's, I think everyone's going to have to be pulling on that rope. And in that way, if you're one of those people who like the roster that didn't want to see much tinkering, I think this is the perfect adds for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Jets had the perfect deadline. I do think it's disappointing. But again, if you find yourself in that group that like what they've seen, that thinks that the Jets can continue this and didn't want to mess with too many bodies, well, I think adding a Luke Schenn and a Brandon Tanev are exactly what you probably predicted or hope for come the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I, like a lot of Jet fans, was bummed on Thursday night when we found out that Brock Nelson was going to Colorado. By all accounts, I mean, the Jets had been very aggressive in trying to get him. He would have been, I mean, I think by all standards, probably a pretty significant upgrade, but it also would have given the team that depth that if something did happen, you know that Vlad Namestnikov's very capable of coming in and playing that role. That was why I was a little surprised coming out of Friday, in that I knew that he was a target for them. But then when there wasn't an additional add of a guy that could play center, as you just laid out, it does leave you a little nervous that if somebody goes down,
there's no doubt you're vulnerable.
Is a good word to put it. I mean, I will say this: they've got Rasmus Kupari, who's played regularly this year. They've got David Gustafsson. Now, I'm not sure any of those players potentially, moves into a second line role. I think it's pretty clear, and we saw it on Sunday when Vlad did get knocked out by the concussion spotter. That's going to be Adam Lowry's role to move up to. And
Absolutely.
Again, we didn't see a long time with him playing with Nikolai Ehlers before he got hurt. I will say I really liked the look of it, and I thought Ehlers really bought into that as well. So, if they have to cross that bridge, I think that's where they go. And you do have two guys that right now aren't in the lineup at center that could absolutely move into a fourth line role. And certainly I think Kupari, with the speed that he brings, could probably play, a pretty valuable role on that checking line. Just that you do lose a little bit, not like Adam Lowry, is Mark Scheifele or anything like that. But, but to your point, Jeff, this is a team that has had contributions from everybody up and down the lineup. Their identity certainly didn't change, but I think they did get tougher to play against. I mean, Brandon Tanev's probably not fun to go against, and he's certainly fun to watch out there playing for your team. But we'll see the debut of Luke Schenn tonight, who, based on the decisions with Logan Stanley now being in the press box for day one of a full complement of players available to the head coach, I think it's pretty clear that, when they talked about that big, experienced, tough defenseman, they were really looking for an upgrade on the role that Stanley had played all season long.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's, as you mentioned, Huss, I mean, you obviously want to get Luke Schenn into a game as soon as possible. And with the way that the pairings have figured themselves out here, yeah, Logan Stanley, Colin Miller look like the odd pairing out, right? And I mean, I think that's what a lot of people envisioned or hoped for with the trade deadline was getting that depth. But whether it's the blue line or up front, depth is something that, of course, everybody takes into consideration. Everybody tries to improve, but it's not something you need until you terribly need it. And as you mentioned, a guy like Vlad Namestnikov being injured, yeah, you probably get the value of, Adam Lowry moving into that spot. You probably get, a decent trade-off, might even be better in some ways, in some capacities when it comes to, protecting the puck and clearing space for your line mates. But then you move into, who's taking Adam Lowry's position and then who's taking that position, right, on the fourth line. And that's where the trickle effect comes in. Back to the blue line, you look at Logan Stanley as a guy who, and Scott O'Neill's used this before. He's part of the same team is a top, near the top or atop the NHL standings in the West. So he has played that role. Has he stood out for the wrong reasons in some cases? Absolutely. But he also brings a skill set. Now, this isn't a endorsement for Logan Stanley to be a playoff ready guy or be in the Jets starting 18 roster for the playoffs, but you needed to replace him. You need somebody who is physical. You need to bring that element of toughness and physicality and fear even to a certain degree. And I'm not saying that Logan Stanley was scaring a bunch of opposing forwards with his presence per se, but he does police part of the game, right? He's leaned on to police part of the game. So you needed, if you were going to replace him, which I think was obviously the goal here, you needed to replace him with, as you mentioned, Huss, an upgraded version of him, someone who can play better minutes, someone who can be trusted more, but also can bring that level of physicality. When I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean, dropping the gloves. It means bringing a physical presence to the overall play, being net front presence in the corner, those kind of things. And I think Luke Schenn will probably do a better job than Logan Stanley in that category. Now, will we do as good a job in the toughness category? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see that. But I do think this is kind of the identity that Winnipeg was looking for. You don't want to take out another, a big body like a Logan Stanley and replace him with, somebody who brings a similar skill set to the other 5 defenders on your team, right? I'm not saying that Stanley's so unique in his style of game, but he is different in obviously his physicality and his size. So I think, it's music to a lot of fans' ears that they replaced him, but I do think that element needs to be in the Jets lineup. It needs to be part of that identity, along with their skilled forwards, along with their, puck moving defensemen. They need to have that level of violence, if you will, in the lineup, especially come playoffs.
Yeah, and listen, I think Luke Schenn brings a lot more of that. I mean, he's third in the NHL in hits this year. He plays a consistently physical game. And listen, I mean, I'm not here to dump on Stan. I mean, God knows a good percentage of the fan base does that at every single opportunity they've ever had. And he's sort of been a bit of a lightning rod in the lineup for a few years, but especially this year. But I think it is important to realize and accept the fact that this team is on top of the league right now, and he has had a part of that. Now, he's had a couple rough games, and certainly Sunday was one of those at 5-on-5 with Colin Miller. But he was also the guy that stood up and took on Delorier at center ice against Philadelphia a couple weeks ago. And I'm not sure outside of Adam Lowry, there's another guy that would have the stones to go and do that. So he's earned some respect from the team. He's certainly a big part of this team. And I think, like Arneal said today, like, it's not like that's it. We're never going to see Logan Stanley in later on this season.
This team might need Logan Stanley based on how far they go in the playoffs. They're going to need every person on their reserve.
But I think based on with everyone being healthy, I mean, to start off with the Schenn-Stanley pairing could have been, that could be problematic. Like, if it does come to the point where, say, a Fleury gets hurt or, it's somebody on the left side, well, hopefully it's not Dylan Sandberg or Josh Morrissey.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised at some point if Stanley was back in the lineup, if we did see him playing with Dylan DeMello and them trying Luke Schenn with Josh Morrissey. And I think that's something that we will see. I mean, one thing that we know come playoff time, Josh isn't a huge dude. There will be teams that will be taking run after run at him, and having a bigger partner that can somewhat play a bit of bodyguard. I got a lot of time for that right now. And if that's
don't you think that's the blueprint against the Jets?
Well,
depending on who the other team is, obviously.
Yeah. But listen, the more physical you can get with the top players, and particularly a player like Josh Morrissey, I think the better chance you have to win. So if you can have somewhat of a deterrent out there, as I say, I expect to see Morrissey play with Schenn at some point, depending on how that looks. Don't be surprised if that is the case. And if that is the case, I personally would feel a lot more comfortable with Stanley being out in sheltered third line minutes if he was playing with Dylan DeMello. I don't think anything's happening to the Pionk-Sandberg pairing. And that could be a look later on down the road. But for right now, I get it. You're going to put him in for his first game with the new team, playing on the right side where he's comfortable on that third pairing. And it is interesting, though, that Hayden Fleury is the guy. And I think we basically shouldn't be surprised at that because of the way we've seen him used throughout this year, particularly when there have been injuries on the blue line. But it says something that, Jeff, today, with everybody healthy, this is the lineup that the Jets are putting out to start, because I think this is sort of the base, and they will make changes based on need moving forward after they see what happens tonight.
What did you take from Scott Arneal's presser? It almost felt like he was, trying to explain his reasoning for putting guys in the lineup, almost like he was speaking to the locker room, right? Almost like, we don't, we'll see what happens here. We just want to get, almost like we want to get Schenn in, we want to get him ready. We're going to use Fleury with them, but we're not saying goodbye to Logan Stanley. It's almost like it's that couching of his answers, right? And I'm not saying that coaches don't do
let
that.
Let me ask you this: like, what else could he possibly say? Like, the last thing you want to do is send a message that, thank God we got this guy, because the guy we had out there, I was dying to take him out of the lineup.
No, that's not what I mean. It just felt like, rather than being like, it just felt like he had had those conversations already, obviously, right? And it felt like he was reiterating some of those conversations.
Yeah.
My take had nothing to do with like his take on Schenn, and obviously, you can say those things, the experience, all that stuff. It was more so like, it was almost like he was dealing with a bit of a fresh situation, which of course he was, but just was, my belief, my feeling of it was he didn't want to make it like you're suggesting right now, Huss, that like we finally have our healthy group and this is our playoff lineup. I think you can interpret it that way. Certainly, I think it'd be fair to interpret it that way, but it could very well be game 60 something that he's trying to figure out, against the Rangers and where this would work, right? I mean, to me, it felt less committed. Which is fine. I mean, this could very well be the group. If all is healthy, this is the group that goes in and flurries with Schenn on that third pairing, or as you mentioned, maybe Schenn moves up and DeMello moves down or whatever. But to me, it was an interest. I'm not trying to add anything to it, but I just felt like Scott Arniel was not as committed as being like, this is our Stanley Cup lineup.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I don't know why you would come out and say that. I mean, I don't think there's many benefits to it right off the bat. And listen, I know that so many people are so obsessed with Stanley, and anything that can be made about Stanley, they will go there. But let's not ignore Rasmus Kupari, who has been a regular in this lineup pretty much all season long, who got injured a couple days, misses a couple games, and all of a sudden finds out that he's not in the lineup. Like, I think it's an important message to Kupari, and I think it's a more important message to David Gustafsson, because as he said, and this is what I took away, that is truth, if we're going to achieve our goals and we're going to have a long playoff run and we're going to play in 3 and 4 playoff series, everyone will be called on at some point. We're going to need the best from everyone. And, it is important. It's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, where you get a couple guys post-trade deadline and you realize, oh, wait a second, I'm not in the spot that I've been all year on a team that's number 1 in the National Hockey League. Totally. Like, that can be a little bit of a tough swallow for some guys. So, I mean, I understand what the messaging is. And listen, I think his messaging should be the same to us as it is to the players. And I mean, I can't say I'm really surprised. Again, this is the first time.
But even like the Morgan Barron, he went out of his way to say Morgan Barron, we want to take a longer look at him at center. I mean, that's preparing for the playoffs, preparing for injuries. And rather than throwing Kupari in after concussion protocol, why not ride it out another game? Because you don't really want to go back to it in 4 or 5 games from now if Kupari's taking over. So like, that's what I mean. I think this time here, Haas, is as much as being made of finishing first in the Central Division, and obviously that is a very significant goal here, greater than that goal which has existed all year. It's even greater now than ever before. But I do think this is the time to tinker. This is the time to experiment. This is the time so that you don't get caught with whatever in the playoffs, trying to juggle lines and trying to figure out these different scenarios or situations, and instead trying them for the first time in the playoffs. You get a chance to look at them now.
Hey, pushing 550 in the chat. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and make sure you have hit the thumbs up. And if you did pop in late and you were able to go to the game tonight, our friends at St. Vital Dental Center have popped over with a pair of tickets for tonight's game, which we'll give away at the end. If you do want to enter for that and you're able to go tonight, go to winnipegsportstalk.com, click on the contest tab, and get that entered in. We'll get down to business with that after we bring in our pal Joey Slattery in a couple of minutes. Hammer, before we go, and it's impossible to talk about the Jets ads without talking about what else happened in the division. I mean, just thoughts on, first of all, Colorado getting Brock Nelson, having a great deadline, and then they might be feeling in a similar way to Winnipeg, going, wait a second, Rantanen's back here, and not only do we have to probably play him in the first round, but for the next 8 years for a guy that signed for less money than we offered him. This division has always been really competitive. This might be as interesting a final stretch playoff race coming up because of everything that's happened around, particularly involving those two teams, not the Winnipeg Jets.
It's funny too, Huss, because you got to put a bit of blame on the Winnipeg Jets for being as good as they've been, right? Looking at like, how are we going to beat Connor Hellebuck and the Winnipeg Jets? What do we need to do at the deadline to, and I think that's the approach that Dallas and Colorado has taken for a lot of years. But in this year in particular, it's less about how do we pad our rosters and, be the better than we already are amongst the best. And so instead, how do we solve these Winnipeg Jets? We need scoring power. We need to round out our team. And they've done that. And so the Jets didn't need a reminder on how tough the Central Division is. They didn't need a reminder on how difficult it will be to stay ahead of those teams, but they got a big one at the deadline. And it is an interesting situation. It's I don't want to say scary situation for Winnipeg, but there is no guarantee that teams, players just come in are gonna fit the mold. Even with some early success you see from Brock Nelson, even Mikko Rantanen. I mean, you don't know what you're reading these days, Huss. I don't know if I'm reading a fake article nowadays or if I'm reading the right stuff here. So I'll have to apologize to viewers with the Mikko Rantanen stuff. But if I am correct, he didn't exactly put Carolina in a great situation by telling them that, he'll play for 4 teams and his organization ain't one of them. So, you kind of got to give kudos to Carolina for doing a bit of the dancing that they did at the deadline. Obviously, Dallas has never been shy, to make some big moves. And so signing Mikko Rantanen to a multi-year deal when it sounded like this guy would need the earth, the moon, and the stars to stick in a place. I mean, you got to give him a ton of credit for that. But that being said, I mean, the Winnipeg Jets, you look at, their success this year, it's been special teams. It's been, the play of their goaltending. Those are important things to keep going. If they can improve their defensive game 5-on-5 and their overall game 5-on-5, I think the Jets are going to be right there with them. It's easy to look at a lot of great names that have swapped places and found new hockey homes. And it's easy to look at the pedigrees of the teams like Colorado who have won, championships in recent years. But this is the year of the Jets. Those guys know it in that locker room. They know the pressure that's on them. They know the team that they have. This is a better outfit than last year. It's a better team, and we've seen more consistency from this team than we've had in many years. So the Jets continue to lean on what they've been doing all season and use this as an opportunity to, whether it's a why not us and all these things, which is hilarious when you consider the Jets are atop the standings. If they can bring in that attitude as the underdog, that might bode well for them, because it feels like when they're expected to do things, when they're believed to be the best of the best, it can be a little bit harder to succeed. So if the Jets feel like, everyone's counting them out or, talking them out, they've dealt with that noise all season. So if they can continue to deal with that internally and use it to their advantage, then, who knows? Maybe some puck luck can go on Winnipeg's side, but it's hard not to look at the division for sure, even the conference, and see that there aren't some pretty great teams out there. But spoiler alert, Huss, that's every season. Last time I checked, it's not really, you're always looking at 4, 5, 6 teams on each side and thinking they have a legitimate chance. And the good news for Jets fans is Winnipeg's included in that group this year.
Hey, just before we go, and Slats is coming up in just a minute. Obviously, it's been a tough year for everyone here in the media, losing our dear friend Ted. I was really thinking about him a lot last week during the Brier. I mean, he was the quintessential. He loved curling. He loved everything about that event. And I'm not sure if you caught it, but on Saturday afternoon, I just had whatever the playoff game was on, and they did an award for media contributions in media.
The Paul McLean Award.
Yeah, the Paul McLean Award. Sorry, I didn't know that. But, man, that was great to see Ted's son Chris out there in Kelowna accepting the award for Ted. And I'm sure wherever he was at his bar stool up above, he was watching every game of the Brier and pretty darn proud of that moment for him and obviously his son, who had the opportunity to accept it in his name.
Yeah, I got probably about a 20-minute heads up. So I happened to see it. I think, it's so great Ted absolutely loved curling. Curling loved Ted back. For those that didn't know, Ted's obviously had covered the sport for a very long time, had written books on it, was considered to be one of the premier voices of curling in the entire country, and for many years did it for Post Media. So his words and even his mug would have been in papers across Canada. So a lot of people know Teddy for his coverage, and for him to be honored in that way. I mean, you could probably give him that award every year. For him to get it this year, and for his son Chris to be on hand to accept it, I thought was an incredibly great gesture. And I'm right there with you, Huss. There's no doubt in my mind that Ted's looking down and smiling and enjoying it, and wanted nothing more than to be there to accept it. But yeah, certainly, I'm sure some more honors will come Teddy's way. As obviously short time after his passing, but a special moment, and certainly fitting for a guy who dedicated a large chunk of his professional career to the game of curling.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up with you and point that out to folks that may have missed it on the weekend. Hammer, enjoy the game tonight. Thanks for doing this. We'll catch up soon.
Always a pleasure, my man, and have fun with Slats. I'm sure it'll be I'm glad I went before and not after. So
hey, we got some great local content stories here, both on the university scene and heading into March Madness. We're going to do that right away.
Yeah, right on. Okay, you guys have a great one.
Appreciate it, dude. There's Jeff Hamilton at Jeff K. Hamilton on X. You can read his work in the Winnipeg Free Press. All right, just before we bring in Joey Slattery, we're talking buying Canadian and buying local. Maybe the easiest sell of all, the great taste of Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
Day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Don't forget that watch party we're going to do for Jets Oilers March 20th with Little Brown Jug and Boston Pizza is going to be at the BP Garden City. 8 p.m. start. I know our pal Mike Stetsky's all fired up, was asking about reserving a table. If you are going to bring a group and you want to make sure you got a spot for you and the people that you're bringing, you can get in touch with the BP Garden City to make that reservation. But just make a plan to join us and Little Brown Jug. We'll have 1919 on tap. We'll do some great prizing, some contests in between periods, and get the gang together for what should be a very, very fun night, and always a great game when the Jets play the Oilers. So that is next Thursday, March 20th. Speaking of Boston Pizza, if you don't have a ticket to the game tonight, your next best place to do it is your local BP. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, all the great new ads on the BP feature menu. And of course, if you are staying at home, you can always order online and get it hot and fast to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. Just before we bring in Slats, huge shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. I'm not sure they're going to have all the jerseys for all the teams in March Madness, but just about everything else is at Royal. The biggest selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise you'll find anywhere. Jerseys, hoodies, T-shirts, golf shirts, Q-zips, toques, scarves, you name it, they've got it. You can start planning those playoff outfits right now down at Royal. Check out the new Bomber gear coming in by the day, NFL, Major League Baseball, and Blue Jays for the upcoming season, the biggest hockey section in town, and of course, tons of cool stuff on the King's skate, snow, and surf side, including their massive Yeti and Yeti cooler and mug section. I don't want to check that out as well. 750 Pembina Highway. Give them a follow on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. We'll get to fan feedback for fans first a little bit later on. Right now, though, let's welcome in Joey Slattery, the Slat Man, back to WST. What's good, buddy? How are you?
Oh, man, I'm great. It's just an honor to be following Jeff Hamilton. Glad to be on the show with the Hammer. And shout out to Royal Sports, though. Huss, they have to have the best or the biggest selection of PWHL stuff I've ever seen. They've got all the jerseys and all the T-shirts. We were there the other day to get skate sharpened, and I was like flabbergasted. And just, if you're a jersey lover, man, you'll get lost in there. Make sure you carve out some time.
Yeah, it is. The bottom line is if something is made and it's available, chances are Royal has it. And if Royal doesn't have it, good luck, because you're probably not going to find it anywhere. I want to talk hoops with you, but first let's get to volleyball. We had Chris Voth on with us last week, who won the Canada West Coach of the Year. The Westmen hosting the Final Four for the first time, and 2 big wins on the weekend later. They're Canada West champs and on their way to nationals just down the road in Brandon.
Oh, I mean, it's a huge season for volleyball in general and for Manitoba, because you've got the women's team over at Manitoba hosting the women's nationals this weekend. Last year, they won the conference title. They lost at nationals. I think they came in 3rd place last year, if I recall correctly. And this year, they came in 3rd place in the conference. And they're hosting, similar to last year when UBC won. So they've got a stellar team as well. But yeah, the Westmen have just been on a bit of a tear. You know, usually you think when a new coach comes in, you're a little worried of how they're going to adapt. But I'm going to say they're doing just fine. A couple of individual awards and not a far trek over to Brandon. I'll be there too for those nationals as well in a couple of weeks. So it's going to be exciting between Brandon's team and Winnipeg's team. You've got plenty of Manitoba talent that'll be playing in those nationals. And if you're a volleyball fan, no better year to be going out to watching some great volleyball, that's for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned we had Ken Bentley on a couple weeks ago and was mentioning, you know, they had the playoffs and now they are hosting. I mean, listen, they had that 14-game winning streak, but man, you see how thin the margin is between so many of these top teams, especially in the West, but certainly coast to coast. And I mean, you know, with the amount of growth in grassroots volleyball over the years, the players that this province is producing, we're going to see it on display with the women this week and then at the U of M and then in Brandon later on when the men do their thing.
I'll say this, you know, as someone who's, you know, worked around the country and seen the different conferences, I don't think there's a more competitive conference than the Canada West Conference, whether that's volleyball or basketball. I mean, the talent is just so deep. And I mean, you look at the amount of Winnipeggers and Manitobans on the Manitoba teams, and every time a team rolls through, there's usually 1 or 2 Winnipeggers on the other team as well. So Winnipeg has done a great job with its court athletics for sure. And it's kind of like this, I don't know if it's a secret anymore. I mean, more and more people are showing up, but I mean, for the cost of what what the cost is for a ticket to go to these games and seeing the talent that you're seeing. I mean, as a basketball guy, you know, I'm at most basketball games and the level is much higher than it was when I was in university. That's for sure. And with the CEBL now, these players have something to play for immediately, right? So, but the Canada West Conference coming out of it is hard. A 14-game win streak is huge, and you're going to lose a game. And I'd rather it be lost you know, before the big championships. It's unfortunate they weren't able to win the conference title, but they're not worried about that. They want to win the national title at home for sure.
Yeah, so good luck to the Bison women this weekend. That will be going at IGAC out on the Fort Garry campus at the University of Manitoba. And then we'll pay attention and wish good luck to the Westmen, who will be heading west to Brandon. Two Manitoba teams in the finals, obviously Brandon as the host. All right, let's move on to hoops. And you mentioned the CEBL. We already have 2 Winnipeggers playing in March Madness, one that'll be very familiar to fans, one that won't be as much. Let's start off with the familiar name, and that, of course, is Sea-Bear star Simon Hildebrand, who played the last 2 years with the Sea Bears, elected not to go back to the University of Manitoba. Maybe pick it up there, Slats. Tell us about the move south of the border, the season that he's had, and the fact that he's now going to get a chance to be a part of the madness.
Well, it was a risky move. This wasn't guaranteed, right? I mean, he was going to a team that, you know, was trending upwards. You know, they were the best team in the conference. They were a favorite to win the conference. So we knew he was getting into a good situation. And his coach is one who specializes in his position, you know, that stretch 4, a big body that can shoot the 3, dribble the ball. This was more of a development trek for Simon for sure, you know. And you look at what he was doing in Canada, you know, you won back-to-back U Sports Player of the Year awards. You know, you collected whatever amount of accolades at the U Sports level as well. And he was looking for a new challenge, and he got it. Now, did it go according to plan. I mean, he dealt with some foot injuries. I'm sure it wasn't exactly as he may have pictured it going. I was looking at his stats, averaging 5.6 points per game in 13 and a half minutes. It's not the role that we'd seen him play with the Sea Bears or Manitoba, as one of the more go-to guys and logging in those minutes. But a lot of that had to do with a foot injury that he had been dealing with. But he's fit right in. This is exactly what he was hoping to do. This is the dream, right? If you're going to the NCAA, it's to play in March Madness. And, this team rolled through the season. They won 14 games straight to end the season and win that the Big South Conference and qualify for that NCAA title. Now, you well know, Hustler, the beauty of March Madness is it takes one game, one moment, and it can change your entire life. Right. So whatever's happened in the regular season and in the playoffs is really nothing. And Simon has been trending upwards in that regard. So if he can come out and have one big game, who knows what, it'll mean for him moving forward. Unfortunately, though, it seems that, he will likely not be coming back to the Sea Bears. Anything can change. I know it's something the league's working on. They've got the support of the Winnipeg Sea Bears there as well. They'd love to have him back. But with the eligibility, there's that kind of silver lining that the major junior players can now go to the NCAA after they're done in the WHL or OHL or whatever. But that doesn't apply in basketball. The rule is if you play for an NCAA team, you can only represent that team outside of national teams. And it's a rule that they're challenging. They're trying to work with compliance officers to see if they can work out something with the CEBL to have them back. But that's not looking very likely this year. That said, I would expect him to return at some point to play for the Sea Bears, assuming nothing bigger comes along in the process. But it's going to be very interesting this year. It's been a couple of years since we've had a Winnipegger in the tournament, and now we've got two. It's a historic moment for Manitoba hoops, and I think it really displays the elevation of the game here at home on the wider stage or the bigger stage.
Okay, that is really weird. Considering he's already played 2 seasons in the CEBL.
Yes.
Playing a third season would make him ineligible.
Because he wasn't playing for the NCAA at that point.
Well,
and there was a point.
It would have been
contention.
a non-starter beforehand where just playing pro would have eliminated you from any NCAA conversation. Well,
totally.
Hopefully that might be able to get looked at and tweaked because, a lot of those guys go and play for other teams in the summer. These guys are playing basketball 12 months a year. Just the fact that this is technically pro ball that is problematic, I guess.
Yeah, and I did a story at the start of the year. You can see it on Instagram at Joey Slattery TV. But that was one of the things. There was a suspension involved. When I say it was a risk, he didn't even know if he was going to play. Right? He kind of jumped in. He had a good idea. They knew where it was going. They have compliance officers. Like the way it works in the States is a lot more intense than it is here in Canada with that stuff. Mm-hmm. But he had a good idea he was going to play, but he had to sit out some games. Right? It was almost like a suspension because of that. But now because he's played and he served, that is the rule as it stands right now. We'll see if it changes, but I know that's something the CEBL would like to see because there's plenty of Canadian players, and it might be with individual schools, right? If they go to certain schools, they might be able to come back, but that's something that's definitely in the works that the CEBL would like to see. A few more NCAA top talents come back home to play in the summer.
Joey Slattery is with us. Just before we move on to Kyler, what for everyone that needs to remember when they're filling out their bracket next week, what's Simon's team again?
High Point University out of the Big South Conference, and they're projected to be a 13 seed, which to me is like prime Cinderella territory. So, maybe this is your bracket buster this year, or your maybe not your bracket buster, the one that'll get you ahead is getting a High Point on there. So the thing is with these, they don't play a lot of these teams throughout the year, right? So you're meeting this team for the first time usually when you play this team in the first round, and then you play the next round, a day or two later.
Where is High Point?
It's in North Carolina. It's about an hour and a half north of Raleigh, I believe.
Oh, that is absolutely college hoops country. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, last game, the Jets game, behind the Jets bench, there was a guy wearing a High Point University shirt. I noticed that. So they're very entrenched in the North Carolina Raleigh area.
All right, so we know lots about Simon Hildebrand if you've been paying attention to the Sea Bears of the U of M the last few years. Kyler Filowich, far less known around Winnipeg, although if you've been paying attention to your social media feed and you follow anybody in hoops, he's probably come up. A former Vincent Massey star that left to finish high school out east and is now a star for Wofford and is known for, many things, Joey. Take it from there. Tell WST listeners about Kyler Filowich, the Winnipeg native that will also be participating in the tourney?
Yeah, well, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Chad Posthumus, right? He's a big guy, 6'9", big body center, plays down low, big time rebounder. And here's a guy that, just a few years ago, people were wondering, maybe there were rumblings. Would he come back to Canada? His sister played out at UBC, Keelan Filowich, came back to Winnipeg, and they made that national run to nationals. They lost in the finals. That was a couple of years back, if I recall correctly, 2022. But regardless, a strong basketball family here in Winnipeg. He's gone out, made his mark in the NCAA. This is a guy who you'll notice him right away, if I didn't tell you, because as soon as he goes to the foul line, and he goes to the foul line quite a bit, he shoots underhand. Kind of the old granny shot, the Rick Barry shot, and caught some attention for that this year. But he's a veteran guy, right? His eligibility's up this year. This is his last chance. He's going to the NCAA tournament, and it's his only chance to come home with a national title. Wofford, I'm not sure what their projections are. Probably not going to be very high. They shouldn't even be here. This is actually probably a cooler story, a better story than, High Point University, as much as, we're interested in Simon. But here's a team, they finished 18-15 in the regular season. They weren't even a favorite to be in the conference final, let alone win the conference. So they win the Southern Conference last night against, was it Ferrum? And so it was a crazy game. Wofford turned the ball over like 3-4 times in the last 3 minutes, but it was his free throws. He was 1 for 5. The announcers are talking about it. He gets the ball down low, draws the foul, hits the 2 foul shots. It changes the whole game, and Wofford wins the conference, and now they're going to go off. So he's a guy that's, I know he's got some interest. The Sea Bears are interested in seeing him. They can't negotiate with him, again, going back to the NCAA rules until this season's over, but it is something that the Sea Bears are interested in, or hoping there's a chance that he can come play for Winnipeg this year. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But this guy is someone who's poised to have a good professional career. He's very much your typical, from what I've seen, that typical inside guy. He's going to work the blocks, work the post, draw some fouls. He's a physical guy. It's a guy, quite frankly, the Sea Bears can use that kind of presence inside, which we missed in the last couple of years. So he's a very interesting player to watch. And of course, you'll see it. This is the big stage. As soon as he has that first trip to the foul line, you're going to see the videos go viral of him shooting underhand, people seeing it for the first time.
Has he spoken to this? I mean, it's seemingly ridiculous that at this level, a guy is 30% from the line and has gone, like, usually you're not able to stay in the lineup if that's the case, but he's like one of the stars of the team.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if this was how he's always shot, right? Like this, it came to fruition with the videos when it was like, oh, this player shooting underhand. Then you realize, like, oh, it's Winnipegger Kyler Filowich. And so there is an argument out there. Some basketball enthusiasts will tell you there's a better percentage of throwing granny shot. It just doesn't look cool, right? Rick Barry made a career on it. His son, Canyon Barry, does it in 3x3 for Team USA. So
well, I think they brought Rick Barry in to work with him for a day. I was reading that. I think that is basically where this goes, because he was just having a hell of a time sinking it from the line.
Yeah, and this is an attempt. There are some purists out there that'll tell you you have a better chance with the granny shot, but it's just it looks funny. It's kind of weird, so most people want to do it the old, the traditional way, we'll call it. But nonetheless, this is crazy because there have been 2 Winnipeggers ever to play in March Madness, right? It was Todd McCulloch in the late 90s, and then Emmanuel Acott, who re-signed with the Sea Bears. He played in 2018, I believe, with Arizona, and then again in 2022 at Boise State. He 7 points in one of those games, so he had a bit of a presence there. But now we've matched that this year alone. So we've had 2 Winnipeggers in the past. We have 2 this year. So it really speaks to how rare this is, how special this is, and how entertaining this is going to be, right? Because now you've got those teams that we usually wouldn't care to watch outside of maybe a Cinderella run, but now the Cinderella run could definitely, surround a Winnipegger. And don't be shocked if a Winnipegger leads the charge, especially with Wofford, because Filowich handles the ball a lot and he plays a lot. He averaged 27.5 minutes. He played 32 minutes last night. He had 13 points, 6 boards, and he averages almost 10 boards a game. So he's actually a guy you got to watch. I believe he's number 14 with Wofford. If that team is going to have any success, it's going to fall on him particularly and that inside presence. So it's going to be fun. These aren't just guys that are going to be coming off the bench, especially, you'll see Simon come off the bench, but Wofford, you're going to see Filowich play a ton of time. And it's going to be, I hope everybody's proud, right? That this is a Winnipeg, born and bred, played through the systems here, and have achieved the highest of heights. And I think this is just the beginning.
We are all big High Point and Wofford fans heading into the madness. Some legitimate,
see if we can get them at Royal Sports.
Some legitimate rooting interest. And we do have breaking news. Our own Connor Ravchak went to high school and played ball with Kyler. Super happy to see him in the madness. So there you go. Little WST connection.
Connor, how many assists he had in high school.
Come on the show. Slats, great stuff. You, of course, have been all over both the college scene, university, what's coming up on the madness, target score, weekly, and you're doing some great stuff, by the way. Your presentation on Instagram, 5 out of 5 stars. You're killing it. Let people know about where they can find your content right now as we get into this really busy season for both the volleyball nationals and, of course, the upcoming hoops.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I will have a story later on this week with Simon and hopefully Kyler as well, previewing that, getting their take on this whole experience. But it's at Joey Slattery TV for Instagram, where I post a lot of my stuff. And just to make sure, because I'm not even sure what my own Instagram channel is here, but I believe it's at Joey Slattery Media for the YouTube. Yeah, at Joey Slattery Media on YouTube. If you go on there, even if you watch it on Instagram, the one thing is I have these expanded, I call them expanded versions, where I throw a little bit more stats and context into the YouTube thing. So if you've seen it on Instagram, you might learn a little more on YouTube as well, but just trying to get to as many people as possible where people are watching, right? You've seen the success you've had on YouTube. I figured, well, we'll go from Instagram and try to carry it over there to reach as many people as possible. So on YouTube, it's Joey Slattery Media. On Instagram, it's Joey Slattery TV. And yeah, I love getting in debates. If you want to message me, I'm pretty good at messaging back. I like hearing what people are thinking. If you want to see something, hit me up. Let's have a conversation.
Slats, always great talking to you, buddy. Let's do this again soon, and we'll get our picks ready for the madness, and let's do something next week for sure as the tournament goes on, and we're following both our local products in the tournament.
Selection Sunday is this Sunday. So, hey, next week I am in. I cannot wait to fill out this bracket. Let's do it.
Make sure you're giving Joey a follow. As soon as those matchups are set, there'll be something coming out on his channels. Thanks for doing this, dude.
All right. Always, man. Looking forward to doing it again.
All right. Great stuff. There it is. Joey Slattery and Kyler Filowich and Simon Hildebrand both in the madness coming out of Winnipeg. All right. We got to get to the Coolbet lines, and then we will figure out. Then we'll be giving away the tickets. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again to St. Vital Dental Center, Dr. Terry and the gang for the special WST giveaway today for those seats to the Jets and Rangers tonight. Let's do Why Not question of the day, and This is a relatively simple one. The Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray is this. Everyone seemingly healthy, everyone available tonight. What is your take and your feedback on tonight's lineup that Scott Arniel has put forth? I know this is a good opportunity for many of the mea culpas that said that Stan was never, ever coming out of the lineup. Feel free to take the L right now there. But is this the way you'd like it? Is there someone missing? Is there someone you'd like in? Or has the coach pretty much nailed it, at least to start, and then take it from there? Obviously, Hayden Fleury in on the left side with Luke Schenn on that third pair. Let us know right now in the chat for the Why Not question of the day. We've also got we also had a poll with people liking the Jets tonight in regulation, 87% but we do have a poll right now, and it's simply is this: where do you see Luke Schenn in the lineup by playoff time? Top 4 pairing, bottom pairing, but in every game, in and out of lineup as depth. Let us know your thoughts there, and give us your thoughts on the lineup tonight. All right, just before we get to the Coolbet lines and then our giveaway, we should do fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. So shout out to Dr. Terry. He could have just gone to Fans First, but instead taking care of WST listeners with the giveaway today. But the great thing about Fans First is when you're looking for tickets on Fans First, there's no added fees. What you see is what you pay, and they certainly have the best customer service and prompt payment the first business day after the game right into your account from Fans First if you do need to sell Winnipeg tickets. I'm just looking at some of the fan feedback on the lineup tonight. Boring Sean Manahan, like the third pair. Phyllis says, love the lineup as it stands, but if the second line struggles, I'd like to see Lowry back up there. I certainly think that will be the move if that happens. Hockey Mom, like this lineup. If it clicks, let's go. Matthew, hope Schenn is on the third pair and Stanley isn't. Well, this is kind of why I asked you how you like this lineup tonight, because that's exactly where we're at right now. And Corey May, rotation of bottom six and third pair will be key down the stretch and possibly during the playoffs. And Nicole J, what's up, Nicole? Looking forward to seeing Schenn tonight. Jay Miller, has Schenn ever played top pairing? He played with Morgan Riley in Toronto. They put him with Morgan Riley last year and played some big minutes. That's why I do think at some point we're going to see Schenn playing with Josh Morrissey. I know BA says there's no way. He's attached to the hip to DeMello. But let's not forget the runs that guys will be taking at Josh in the playoffs. I don't like if it works and, and Schenn, if they can connect together, certainly a bigger net front presence out there more with Schenn certainly provides a little more toughness and a bit of a guy to ride shotgun with Josh if he's taken any, that's the thing. It's great to have a big tough guy in the lineup, but if they're never on the ice when your top players are out there, sometimes it becomes that protection element is a little tougher. So anyways, I got time for that. And as far as the poll goes, early on, 35% are sort of with me to think, maybe we'll see Luke Schenn in a top four pairing, but the majority bottom pairing, but in every game. Keep your fan feedback coming in the chat. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans. No fees. All right. Remo, you want us to do the Coolbet lines and then we'll figure out the giveaway?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. I did want to touch on, I know we got to go, but do you see that Aaron Ekblad news yesterday? Suspended 20 games?
Yeah, sorry. I guess that happened at the end of the show yesterday. We didn't really touch on it at the stop. Yeah, big hit for the Florida Panthers. He's going to miss the final 18 games of the regular season and the first 2 games for PEDs. Sounded like he was a little careless with what he was putting into his body. Didn't have much of an excuse. He certainly didn't say he was going to be out spending the next few weeks looking to see how this happened and get to the bottom of it. He sounds like he kind of knew.
Yeah, the NHL PR saying he's suspended for 20 games without pay for violating the terms of the Performance-Enhancing Substances Program. And then no further comment. And Ekblad said, as the NHL announced, I have been suspended for violating the program. The news that I had failed a random drug test was a shock. Ultimately, I made a mistake by taking something to help me recover from recent injuries without first checking with proper medical and team personnel. I have let my teammates, the organization, and our great fans down. For that, I am truly sorry. I have accepted responsibility for my mistake and will be fully prepared to return to my team when my suspension is over. I've learned a hard lesson and cannot wait to get back with my teammates. I mean, I was just waiting for the excuse right away. All I know is anytime anyone tests positive, it was never intentional. It was always a mistake. It was always,
didn't do it.
How could this happen? So just another victim of, just an honest mistake. It's never been, sorry.
I mean, hey, at least he didn't BS anyone. He said it's on him. I mean, I know Jay Miller said he'll appeal. That certainly didn't sound like a guy that's appealing. Not to mention, I think he's somewhat fortunate that this didn't come out 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. And you're talking about missing a much greater run of the playoffs. I mean, frankly, he's pretty fortunate that he'll miss 2 playoff games and presumably be ready to play in game number 3. And at his age, maybe that time off won't be the worst thing. Be funny if the Panthers sort of knew that this was coming. It is somewhat an interesting coincidence that they did do what they had to do to get Seth Jones last week, knowing that they are about to lose Aaron Ekblad. But that was a big story right after we went off the road yesterday. Just looking in the chat, I know there's talk about how much time that Schenn will play. And Matt Hyman said the last time he averaged over 20 minutes a game was in 2012-13. It's important to note when I say kind of moving up to that pairing, like Josh Morrissey's going to play a ton in the playoffs. I mean, don't be surprised in tight games if Josh is going 26, 27, 28 minutes a game with the season on the line. Wouldn't be surprised if, as they say, if things do work with Schenn when they do play him together, if that's sort of split. And at that point, if Morrissey's doing a bunch of double shifting, you're playing with more 5 regular defense, and then that 6 defenseman on the left side, might be left as 7, 8, 9 minutes while your number one guy is pushing 30. And I would not have a problem with that at all. All right. Before we do our giveaway for St. Vital Dental Center, let's check out the Coolbet lines. I know you won't hear me say this very much, but shout out to Mitch Marner last night, who kept our streak going. The winner in the shootout, Leafs win. And the play of the day is now 10 in a row. And man, we had plenty of options to choose from tonight. Huge night in the National Hockey League. Let's roll it down. Panthers minus 208 in Boston. Would have been nice if Brad Marchand was playing. He won't be playing today. He did skate with the team. That might have been a tough place for him to make his debut, to be honest, at TD Garden. First time I'll ever be walking by the visitors' locker room today, though, I will say that. Columbus, who's in the second wild card right now, desperately needing wins. They're in Jersey, and this might be a great time to play Jersey with no Jack Hughes. New Jersey minus 165, Columbus plus 140. We've got the Sens minus 120 favorites after stealing one last night in the back of Linus Ullmark against Detroit. Huge win for Ottawa. They're in wildcard 1. They're minus 120 favorites in Philly. Vegas minus 196 favorites in Pittsburgh. Hurricanes and Lightning. This will be a great one tonight. Canes minus 135. Tampa plus 115. We've got the Avalanche after their 3-0 shutout of the Blackhawks last night in Minnesota to take on the Wild. Colorado minus 159. The Jets minus 189 favorites here. The Washington Capitals minus 189 favorites in Anaheim. Vancouver minus 147. Montreal plus 125 in one of the late games. We got the Kings minus 189 faves against the Islanders. And the final game on the docket is the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. Preds minus 164 and the Sharks plus 140. We do have a partner parlay that we put together today in the chat. And that's up in the combo cards, I should say. We're going to take Tampa in Carolina at plus 115. We're adding the Avalanche at minus 159 and the Canucks minus 147. Quinn Hughes not playing tonight. And that's boosted up from plus 469 to or 489 to plus 563 up there in the combo cards. I am thinking about a WST parlay here, Reem. We'll take Jets to win. Have you got any leans or hunches on who's going to be scoring tonight?
I know Mark Scheifele always gets up to play against the Rangers, especially when it's in Madison Square Garden. It is in Winnipeg, obviously, tonight. But I was hopping on that top line, didn't get on the board last game at home. I would like Mark Scheifele here, just against the Rangers.
Yeah, I don't mind Mark Scheifele. Adam Lowry seems to sort of score in bunches. He had that gift goal at the end of the game against the Hurricanes. Did he score against the Devils in that game?
He's on a bit of a heater here, isn't he?
He is. Okay, he's got goals in the last 2 games. Maybe he'll make it 3 in a row. I'll look to see. Well, as I said, keep your eyes out on the exclusives. I'm going to put this together after the show. That'll be up beforehand. One other thing to mention with Coolbet, tomorrow we'll be making our picks for the Players Championship. Amazing new promo. Every week you've got one 30% profit boost for golf. And when you consider some of the odds that these players are coming in at, if you're picking outrights, it can be a real nice one. I was just kind of testing it out with Justin Thomas. It's up to a maximum of $100. If you bet $20 on Justin Thomas, who's 20-1, which would normally pay you back $420, if you pop in the bonus, that maxes it out. You get an extra $100. So if you do like golf betting and you haven't played a Coolbet before, what are you waiting for? Use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on that first deposit, and figure out which bet you make for the Players is going to get your 30% profit boost. Just click the green box in there. Very simple. And it'll be there for you. And I guess one other thing I will let you know tonight, WST listeners can get it first. I mentioned our play of the day. We are running hot. It has been 10 in a row after Marner and the Leafs won last night. I think I'm focusing in on a shot prop tonight. Ottawa and Philly, Matvei Michkov over 2.5 shots. Minus 115 on either side. I'm going to take the over. He's gone over in 4 of his last 5 games. Has only scored the 1 goal. And I think considering what Ullmark did last night to Detroit, they know they're going to need to get a lot of pucks on net if they're going to win. So riding with the over, Michkov, 2.5 shots. Fingers crossed we'll be talking about an 11-game winning streak tomorrow for the lock shop. Had to sweat that one out last night. Not only was it a shootout, Remis, but it was a late game. But we got the job done.
Yeah, nicely done there, Hassan. Did you see, you're talking about the Leafs Utah game, you see that Superman punch by Simon Benoit? Everyone talking about it. I'll be honest, I think it's like the dumbest thing ever. Like, you're on skates. You're not on feet.
Did you see the whole fight?
I did see. Did he get ragdolled after, like, you're landing off balance. Like,
he did the Superman punch.
He jumped,
and then Kesselring
grabbed him.
5 relatively good shots in before he sort of fell down with the guy on him, but that was the only offense Benoit got in. It did look cool, I guess. There was an amazing photo from behind of him sort of raised and going to do it. But it was funny. I was watching the game, tuning in to kind of keep tabs on our play of the day. And when it was 3-3, all the Utah commentators said that, that was the point that the Utah HC turned it around. They were down 3-0 in the game. They stormed back to tie it, and then obviously weren't able to win it in regulation or overtime and ended up losing in the shootout. But it's adding to the list of Superman punchers in the league of Bieksa, who KO'd Gudis, and of course Foligno doing that to our own Brendan Dillon. Was it last season or the season before?
Oh, that was a couple of years ago with Foligno. And look, I watched the Bieksa Superman punch. Like, he just takes like a little step forward. He's not going like he's in the Matrix, like jumping up high like this. Again, like, you're on skates, like landing. I don't know. It seems like it's pretty easy to be off balance when you're on skates, and jumping 2 feet in the air to do a Superman punch and trying to punch a guy. He's got a helmet on, and he's got a visor on. I mean, going above the where are you going to punch them when you jump up, Huss? You're wearing a helmet and a visor. Maybe you want to go down and under the visor. Like, that's why these fights are, I don't know. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, love the Canada-US fights, but these guys are wearing visors and a helmet. When you're up high, all you see is helmet and visor. You're not, where are you going to punch? So he's injured his hand after the game. Like, it really, I look super cool in the picture. I don't know if it's an effective fighting strategy.
Tico Napoli in chat. Never mind that crap. How about that Bauer fighting Gerard Gallant's boy on the weekend? Epic Bauer. That was an absolutely crazy heavyweight tilt. It is on my, Dave Minuk tweeted it out. It's on my timeline. I believe I just quote tweeted it with "Holy shit, Bomb City." As Dan Fink, or it was Dave that described it, I can't remember which one. no defense in that one. These guys were just absolutely throwing them for about a minute. Tico Napoli, no one will ever question the toughness of your guy, Ty Bauer. What an absolute beast that he is. All right. Reem, let's do this. We've come to the end of the program. But if you're with us earlier, one of our great partners, St. Vital Dental Center, sent over a pair of tickets today for us to give out to a lucky WST listener. Now, we've been taking entries in throughout the show at winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. We've got the list. Shout out to everyone that signed up for the mailing list to get 2 entries in it. How are we going to adjudicate this, Remis, now that we've got our list?
Let me get all the entries. And some people get multiple. You got a bonus entries if you sign up for the mailing list. So some people did take advantage. Perfect. Some people also only use their first name. So I just want to make sure that I find a way to differentiate. So give me 1 second here.
Oh, good call. Good call.
As I load these in. So I'm just putting the number to acknowledge.
All right, you do that. I'm going to take a look at the chat here. Lot of talk about that scrap. Comet, I saw the Bauer Gallant scrap live, all caps, epic. Derek Schmidt, I love Bauer. And then Comet said both guys needed x-rays, dental work. Like, I watched that and it's just like, are you kidding me? Like, what a way to make a living, man. And that's why, I mean, for all the people that, crap on Logan Stanley, there's something to be said. I mean, listen, I don't think that he's been, what they've maybe hoped that he could be when they drafted him. But I think that he has improved. And as far as the toughness side of things, I mean, if you have a guy on your team that will throw down with Nick Delorier, who's a top 3 heavyweight in the league, and hold his own, that is obviously something that is important to a lot of teams and the Winnipeg Jets. And listen, I know he won't be in the lineup tonight, and Luke Schenn's an upgrade on him, but for all the heat that he took from a section of the Winnipeg Jet fan base, there is something to be said about playing as much as he did this year and being a part of a team that's on top of the league. So, listen, Stan will be in the press box tonight. It'll be interesting to see when he gets back in. Is he on the opening night roster for the playoffs? I think based on today, if everyone's healthy, probably not. But again, if this team is going to go where they want to go, you'll see Stan, you'll see David Gustafsson, you will see Rasmus Kupari at times, because we know what a war of attrition that the Stanley Cup playoffs are, and no team gets it through unscathed. 66% for the bottom pairing, but in every game for Luke Schenn is that front. And hey, there's Dr. Terry right there, St. Vital Dental Center. What's up, Dr. Terr? Thanks again for these seats. Someone is going to be very happy. You got some nice ones too. Lower bowls from the folks at St. Vital Dental Center. And you may have to put that Stan jersey away for a bit. Stan is a lover, not a Bauer. Listen, dude, there's not many Bauers out there. I mean, if Tyrell Bauer had a little bit more in a couple of areas, he would be an absolute terror in the National Hockey League. I mean, you see what a guy like Olivier can do. And he extended, didn't he, Remis?
Bauer?
No, Olivier in Columbus.
Oh, Olivier, yes, he did.
What was that? What did he get? I'm gonna look that up while we
1 sec. I'm just saving.
Yeah,
this.
Here it is. The Matthew Olivier 6-year deal, paying $3 million AAV per season. And listen, if you talk to a lot of people around the league, he's going to be worth every single penny of that. I'm happy staying in Columbus too. I mean, being a guy in a smaller market, it's good when those teams are able to keep their players that would have plenty of interest in them around the league. And listen, he's been a big part of a team that has been one of the great stories of the league so far, in the league so far this year. Definitely pulling for the East to stay where it is right now. I want Ottawa. I want Columbus in the playoffs, preferably with a first-round matchup of Florida versus Ottawa. What do you think the chances are that the Chuck brothers would fight each other?
High, very high. Isn't
High?
it? Yeah, for sure.
And who would be? Would it be Brady? It would be Brady saying, okay, this is my chance to announce that we're here and we don't care who you are.
He's got younger brother angst for sure. And hasn't done it before, wants the spotlight. Yes. I might
actually, for the first time in my life, feel sorry for Matt Tkachuk, because I know what it's like to get your ass kicked by your younger brother. It happened to me quite often for many years growing up. So Remo, where are we at for this little giveaway?
I just have them in the wheel of names because we got to go to put this podcast up. I don't want to mess around with it. Let's just do it and end.
By the way, Dr. Terry, being a big golf guy, also St. Vital Dental Center, sponsors of the Match Play Tournament. We'll have to get Terry on. We'll talk about it before it happens. Just put in chat, he's gutted with the Tiger Woods news.
Yes.
Tiger has just put this out. As I began to ramp up my own training and practice at home, I felt a sharp pain in my left Achilles, which was deemed to be ruptured. This morning, my doctors performed a minimally invasive Achilles tendon repair. The surgery went smoothly. We all expect a full recovery. He's back home, plans to focus on his recovery and rehab. Thanks for all the support. So I think we can kiss seeing Eldrick at the Masters next month out, and that definitely sucks for golf fans. Not that I think we really expected Tiger to compete, but that's the one place, and we saw it in 2019, anything is possible with Tiger Woods at Augusta. So that is really unfortunate. All right. Listen, thank you again to St. Vital Dental Center. It is great to have them on board. Took care of my grill. They can take care of yours. It's spring cleaning time. Pop down, see Dr. Terry and his great staff. But they have put forth a couple of great seats tonight, Section 207. Everyone that entered, thank you. Great to see a few more people on our mailing list as well. Keep your eyes out. We don't spam you, but when there's an event or there's a giveaway or a contest, we'll let you know through there. If you missed getting on the mailing list, you can go back to winnipegsportstalk.com and just get in there and subscribe anytime. But Remo, geez, looks like we've got a lot of names on this thing today.
246 entries.
Beautiful. And a lot of people doubled up because they got 2 entries if you're on the list. But again, we've got your email. So I will send those tickets later on today. And I hope you have a great time at the game, and I hope you see a big win. I'll be at the game tonight, upstairs though, tonight in 316. Mike Wynn, hopefully I'll see you there in row 1 tonight. All right, Reem, courtesy of St. Vital Dental Center, 2 great seats for tonight's Jets Rangers tilt. Let's spin it up and see who's going to the game. Here we go.
Can't even see the names.
I know. It's just going to pop up.
It's just going to pop up.
Michael John Gillum. Attaboy, Michael. Great to have you on the program, and I hope you have a great time at the game tonight. So we've got your email. We'll send those a little later on today. Enjoy the game tonight, and make sure you send a note of thanks in the chat or elsewhere to Dr. Terry and St. Vital Dental Center, or better yet, pop down and see them at 167 St. Anne's. Free parking in the back. I know some people don't like the dentist, but I can tell you it is a very pleasant experience going to St. Vital Dental Center. I think the equipment is just much better. a lot of the reasons why you hated the dentist back in the day have sort of been eliminated. So you can go in, get a spring cleaning on your grill, and thank them later. Again, St. Vital Dental Center, stviteldental.ca, and down at 167 St. Anne. So, Michael, we'll send you those tickets later on this afternoon. Maybe we'll see you at the game tonight. Congratulations. Thanks to everyone else that entered. And Remo, we've got it. Listen, every game just seems so big right now after the trade deadline. Got to get 2 points and get 8 back up on the Dallas Stars before the opportunity to further extend that in a massive head-to-head game on Friday.
Dallas, they're off until that game. So this is a nice tune-up for the Jets, maybe avoid some rust, and you'll have a couple days to be ready for the big game, Friday night game against Dallas. But first up, the Rangers, they're playing pretty well, but the Jets, as we showed before, big favorites tonight. Do you think get back in the win column after Sunday's loss to Carolina? Minus 189, Jets at Coolbet.
I'm pumped. I can't wait to see Brandon Tanev back out there for the Jets. I know he'll get a big warm welcome, as will Luke Schenn. There's Dr. Terry. Thanks, Huss. Thank you, Terry. That was awesome. And Remo, appreciate that, Terry. Michael, have a great time at the game, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow right here on WST at 1:00 p.m. Thanks again to Terry, all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day, all of you for hanging out with us. 7:00 puck drop tonight. Get there early to welcome Brandon Tanev back and Luke Schenn to Winnipeg. Celebrating Women in Sport Night. Going to be a great 4-woman anthem with some of your favorites. And bottom line is we'll be all over it tomorrow, regardless of the outcome, 1 p.m. right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.